This story kicks off like a bad breakup on steroids. We're talking about Jiang Xiaoyong, who's currently dangling over a cage full of ravenous zombies, courtesy of his ex-girlfriend. She's having a grand old time, laughing, mocking him, letting him know all his buddies are dead, and he'll be joining them shortly. Charming, right? Xiaoyang's kicking himself, realizing he trusted this total psycho, the real villain of this story. She, of course, couldn't care less about his threats. She's upgraded to a richer, stronger boyfriend, who's more than happy to help her get rid of this garbage. The new guy, a real piece of work, wants to torture Xiaoyong slowly, giving the ex a front row seat to his suffering. Before dropping him to his doom, he thanks Xiaoyong for all his stuff, generosity that'll keep them comfy for months. Then, splat Xiaoyong zombie chow. All he can do is scream and dream of sweet, sweet revenge on his ex, Jing, and her fatty boyfriend, Le Shuang. But then, bam, he's awake, and Jing's awful voice is screeching at him about the house deed. She's wondering why he hasn't put her name on it. Doesn't he love her? Xiaoyong's reeling. Did he seriously just time travel back before the apocalypse? He remembers it all. Jing conning him out of his inheritance, leaving him broke and homeless. Then, the world went to hell, zombies everywhere. But even then, Xiaoyong pulled it together, surviving with friends, building a safe zone. They were good for months, until Jing showed up again, playing the damsel in distress. He fell for it. Again. Idiot. The next night, she opened the gates to their enemies, and now, this same backstabbing woman is demanding 400,000 yuan as a bride price, plus the house. She's acting like he's her lovesick puppy, totally blind to her rotten core. But not this time. He's done. But he needs to play it cool. One wrong move, and he's toast. Jing gives him a week, or the wedding's off. Xiaoyong boots her out, telling her he gets it. She's floored. Since when did her slave Xiaoyong grow a spine? Now, with the annoying traitor gone, he can focus. He's got a month until Z-Day, prep time. Suddenly, he gets a notification, like he's in a freaking video game. Apocalypse system activated. His mission, aptly named Apocalypse Preparation, is to get some land and a year's worth of supplies. Completing it gets him 10 points, which he can use in the system store. Sweet, but what's in the store? Mostly loot boxes and some potions, like for strength boosts. His stomach growls, interrupting his system perusing. He remembers how he starved himself in his past life, saving every penny for Jing's insane bride price. Not this time. He orders a fancy, Michelin 3-star meal. Zombies are coming, might as well enjoy good food while it lasts. Hours later, the food arrives. It's a feast he wouldn't have dreamed of before. Braised pork that's practically divine after apocalypse rations. He's in food coma heaven. Then, the phone rings. It's Wen Shuya, Jing's friend, which means the complaining has already started. He answers, instant regret. Wen Shuya's screaming at him. How dare he treat Jing like that? She just wants proof of his love. If he won't give her his property, how can he say he loves her? It was just a test, and he failed. But if he brings the deed and 1,000,000 yuan in cash, Wen Shuya will try to smooth things over. Otherwise, it's breakup city. Xiaoyong's done. Who does she think she is? He tells her to get lost. Wen Shuya tries to argue, but he hangs up. He's over these gold-digging women. Now, it's all about finding land, a place to build the ultimate fortress, near water and a forest. And the next morning, he's at the real estate agency. A consultant, Shang, greets him, asking if he's looking to rent or buy. Xiaoyong says neither. He's after something bigger. Then, the sales manager, a real jerk named Ju, butts in, ordering Ziyang to carry boxes of toilet paper. He doesn't see Xiaoyong as a customer, calling him a broke loser who can't even afford toilet paper. This arrogant prick has pushed Xiaoyong too far. Time for a lesson. Xiaoyong asked him to repeat himself, and how dare he look down on others. Manager Jay wasn't backing down, confident in his position. He proudly declared he was a man who looks down on dogs like our hero. If Xiaoyong could even afford a toilet, Manager Jay would eat __ on a live stream. One look at Xiaoyong, and it was clear the manager would regret his words. Since the manager insisted, Xiaoyong advised him to find some fresh, steaming ones later. After all, our hero wasn't here to rent or sell, but to buy land. The customers were shocked. It was the first time they'd seen someone rich enough to buy land. Miss Chang invited him to sit for a detailed introduction. Manager Ji watched, teeth gritted. Sure, anyone could talk, but he doubted Xiaoyong could actually pay. Xiaoning provided our hero with the available land options, explaining each one. But Xiaoyong didn't need all that. He knew exactly what he wanted. He'd state his requirements, and she could see if they had a match. Xiaoyong wanted land near mountains and water, preferably running water. Factories or large buildings on the land would be ideal. Finding something suitable would take Xiaoning a little time. But then Manager Ji approached from behind again. He seemed to have a hobby of doing that. He claimed the perfect property was in the Eastern District. Xiaoning thought it was a bad idea. That place was the T-City land, full of unfinished factories and pending projects. Such property couldn't be sold. Manager Jay disagreed. He hadn't seen any real customers, and this loser, with his high demands, was just here to cause trouble. Xiaoyong didn't care where the land was, as long as it met his needs. Incomplete factories weren't a problem. In fact, they were an advantage. After reviewing the details, our hero decided it was perfect. With barbed wire, the place would be easy to defend, and the unfinished factories would save money and time on construction. He was ready to sign the contract and pay immediately. Xiaoning was shocked. She couldn't believe someone in their right mind would buy this land, but Xiaoyong was firm, even urging her to hurry because someone was eager to eat fresh poop. Soon enough, Manager Ji held the check. Stunned. This ragamuffin had paid 300,000 for land with abandoned factories? Crazy. Xiaoyong reminded him before leaving that he had paid, and now it was his turn to perform. While Ji enjoyed the process, Xiaoyong would send a super chat donation, so he wouldn't be so offended. The other customers encouraged the fat manager to hurry. They'd already started the stream. Ji just had a stomachache, but he promised it would at least be fresh. Xiaoyong had completed the system task's first step. Now for step 2, he'd spent all his money on the land and needed to figure out how to get money for supplies. Leaving the real estate agency, he was recognized by an old acquaintance, Li Shuang, who wondered what our hero was doing there. However, all questions flew out of his head when he saw the scene inside. Staff and customers were forcing Manager Ji to keep his promise, while he desperately begged for help, not wanting to eat poop. Meanwhile, Qiu Jing was carefree, painting her nails. She got a call from Li Shuang, asking if she knew Xiaoyong had come to buy land. She was shocked. Where did he get so much money? Li Shuang clarified that Xiaoyong had paid 300,000, probably the bride price money he'd saved. Now she was furious. That bastard dared to use her money. Li Shuang advised her to calm down and talk to Xiaoyong, but she was blinded by anger. She wasn't going to ask him anything. He was using her money, and she was going to expose him. In the meantime, our hero had his own worries. Buying supplies and building a base required serious cash. His peaceful musings were interrupted by a frantic knock. It was Qiu Jing, along with her sister. She was still furious that he dared to spend her money. Xiaoyong still couldn't understand what she was talking about. Qiu Jing continued, thinking she was exposing him for using the bride price money to buy land. That money belonged to her, and therefore, so did the land. Xiaoyong didn't even know how to respond to this crazy woman's claims. Finally, he explained things in a way even a dumbass like her would understand. He has plenty of money but wouldn't spend a single cent on her. Besides, he knew about her affairs with Liang. Qiu Jing didn't understand how he knew about her, and Liang, her sister, seeing where things were going, suggested they all calm down and solve this misunderstanding between a couple. But Xiaoyong wasn't wasting his time. There was no misunderstanding. Qiu Jing wasn't his girlfriend but a pathetic doormat for that old fatty Liang. He slammed the door in her face, telling her to get lost. Just looking at her annoyed him. Qiu Jing still couldn't understand how he knew. She and Liang had always been careful when renting rooms. Her sister didn't know either, and didn't understand why her sister hadn't shared such important information. Was she really dating that middle-aged man? Qiu Jing assured her it was nothing serious. They'd just rented rooms a few times. In this out-of-control situation, they had no choice but to go home and come up with a new plan. That's all they could do, since her sister screwed up with Xiaoyong. Wuya herself now wanted to charm Xiaoyong. After all, they were good sisters. Xiaoyong rolled up to his land with a construction crew, ready to rebuild a factory. He was itching to know how long it would all take. Foreman Li laid it out, reinforcing walls, building guard towers, stringing up Texas barbed wire, beefing up the steel doors, and slapping on bulletproof glass. All major time sucks. But he had another question. What kind of enemy had ticked off our hero so badly that he needed this kind of fortress? Xiaoyong told him to keep his nose out of it. Too much knowledge is a dangerous thing. All he wanted to know was the cost to get it done in a month. The foreman swore it was impossible. Fine, Xiaoyong thought. I know plenty of guys who will do it. The foreman shot back that the workers' lives and safety were worth more. This surprised our hero. He thought he'd finally met a foreman with a conscience. Nope, it just meant a boatload of cash was needed. Xiaoyong told him to spit out the price. Foreman Li figured that to finish in a month, the crew would have to work around the clock, jacking the cost up to 6 figures, 20 million, with a 5 million deposit to get started. Not exactly what our hero had in mind. He wanted them to start immediately, promising to wire the money within a week. No worries about payment. If he couldn't swing it, the land was theirs. Suddenly, Shuya showed up, all clingy, asking what he was doing there. Xiaoyong was already over this woman. In his past life, she and Qiu Jing had screwed him out of his inheritance. This time, he was going to make her pay double. Her act was useless. He saw right through her. She gushed about the land, guessing he was building a villa. Whatever he built was none of her business. Her head was spinning. Since when did this loser act so tough? Usually, just a touch from her made him blush and his heart race. Not today. He brushed her off and went back to bossing the construction workers, telling them to widen the gate. Shuya couldn't afford to lose this golden opportunity. Since Qiu Jing had blown it with her cheating, Shuya needed to make her move, and this land would be hers. Xiaoyong went home, racking his brain for how to get more cash. He'd only gotten a 3 million loan after mortgaging the house, not even enough for the first phase of construction. But then again, the apocalypse apocalypse was coming anyway. He could sell the house to a few people, no big deal. Just then, a knock. That damn annoying old neighbor, Grandpa Lee, lived downstairs. The rich old coot owned the first and second floor apartments and wanted the third, but Xiaoyong wouldn't sell. So the old guy resorted to all sorts of nasty tricks, painting the doors, scattering trash, bringing a coffin, and jamming the locks. Now he was complaining about a party Xiaoyong supposedly threw last night. Total lie. Our hero went to bed early, but there was no point in arguing. Xiaoyong knew the old man wanted his house, so he pretended to give in, saying he was ready to sell. The old geezer couldn't believe it, but Xiaoyong had a condition. He needed to stay in the house for another 6 months until he found a new place. The old man had to transfer 5 million immediately to cover the deposit for the new place. No deal otherwise. The greedy old bastard couldn't let this slip away and agreed, demanding they sign a contract so Xiaoyong couldn't back out. Fine by our hero. That old bastard would still die in his house when the apocalypse hit. Once old Lee wired the 5 million, Xiaoyong had 8 million, including the bank loan. Time for the second task and the reward. The biggest supermarket was perfect. Xiaoyong started stocking up like a madman, loading up on supplies for the year. People stared like he was crazy, giving him a wide berth. He hauled a mountain of carts to checkout. People still didn't get why he was buying so much, laughing at him like he was another fool falling for apocalypse rumors. Their chatter didn't matter. Xiaoyong had completed the system's task and received 10 points. The protagonist's supply box in the system store cost 10 points, and Xiaoyong jumped at the chance, spending all his points. He got the mysterious box. Inside was a level 1 space ring, giving him 500 cubic meters of subspace where time stood still, meaning nothing inside would spoil. Insanely successful. There was a reason our hero had a good feeling about this box. Fresh food could be stored indefinitely. Along with the new item, Xiaoyong got a new mission, 10 years of sustenance worth 20 points. But then, the supermarket security chief called him, saying some crazy guy was causing trouble. Turns out, he knew Xiaoyong. The security chief, Yang Tao, went to the same high school and was the lackey of a local bully, extorting money from students. Xiaoyong had clashed with him often. He didn't expect to run into him here. Yang Tao demanded Xiaoyong put everything back or else. Xiaoyong shot back that he hadn't changed, still bullying the weak. But our hero wasn't returning anything. He was a customer, and he was always right. Was this how customers were treated? Yang Tao then demanded Xiaoyong pay immediately or face the consequences. After an hour, the cashiers finally totaled everything. 56,000 Yang Tao demanded payment, and our hero, without hesitation, used his credit card like a weapon. Transaction successful. The security chief was stunned. He turned to leave, defeated, but Xiaoyong ordered him to wait. Yang Tao hadn't realized his mistake. It was simple. He'd been rude, and now our hero wanted a public apology. The security chief, Yang Tao, figured Xiaoyong was pushing his luck, but too many witnesses backed Xiaoyong up. They'd recorded everything and threatened to make Yang Tao internet famous if he didn't apologize. Xiaoyong also promised to buy 10 times more stuff if the apology was sincere enough, even offered to show Yang Tao his bank balance on a pose machine. Yang Tao was floored when he saw the 7 million in the account. Xiaoyong just wanted an apology, and then he'd keep buying. The security chief's pride took a beating, but the pressure was too much, and he caved, apologizing. Xiaoyong, walking by, advised him to think things through better in the future, since you never know how things might play out. Now Yang Tao, all smiles, asked why Xiaoyong needed so much stuff. Xiaoyong shot back that it was none of his business, but he was planning something big. Yang Tao figured the supermarket's warehouse wouldn't cut it. Xiaoyong should go to a wholesaler, and he knew just the guy. Jiang Xiaoyong, who used to work at the supermarket and was now in wholesale. He called Jiang Xiaoyong right away, bragging about landing a huge customer. Xiaoyong realized some people never change. With these two clowns still working together, he could only imagine how much they were ripping off the supermarket. Soon, they arrived at the wholesale warehouse. A fancy car pulled up, driven carelessly. Xiaoyong could tell from Jiang Xiaoyong's arrogant driving that he'd probably never been scammed before, and it was time to change that. It was a reunion of sorts. Though the arrogant boss didn't recognize Xiaoyong at first, Tao had to remind him they went to middle and high school together. Even then, Xiaoyong struggled to place Xiaoyong, but after a moment, he remembered the guy with a bit of a spine. Xiaoyong sized up his former classmate, instantly disliking the cheap, non-designer clothes. He hated people who pretended to be rich. Judging by Xiaoyong's clothes, Xiaoyong concluded he was a nobody and turned to Tao, ready to teach this idiot a lesson for wasting his time with a useless client. Xiaoyong even kicked Tao in the ass, telling him to think better next time. Even though Tao tried to stand his ground, knowing Xiaoyong was loaded, Xiaoyong wouldn't hear it. He'd been in the business for years and thought he could spot a rich guy a mile away. Xiaoyong, seeing that some people never change, called Xiaoyong an illiterate who looked down on people. Xiaoyong grabbed him, demanding he repeat himself. Xiaoyong, totally unfazed, repeated it to his face. But it turned out, it wasn't the looking down on people that set him off at all, but that it was the illiterate part. That wasn't what Xiaoyong expected. The guy was truly shameless. Tao, sensing a fight, quickly stepped in, advising Xiaoyong not to touch Xiaoyong's sore point really was illiterate and hated being called that. For saying that, Tao got another kick and more insults from Shangyi, who was pissed he couldn't do what he wanted. Turning to Xiaoyong, Shangyi gave him an ultimatum, either buy a truckload of goods or crawl away on all fours. Xiaoyong was more than happy with this. He told Shangyi to let go of his collar and give him the account number. In a flash, Shang's angry face turned to shock. Xiaoyong had somehow actually transferred $1 million into his account. It was just a deposit, Xiaoyong explained. He planned to buy 5 million worth of goods. Shangyi asked what kind of goods. Xiaoyong wanted oil, rice, salt, snacks, and drinks basically. Stuff that wouldn't spoil quickly. A sneaky smile crept onto Shangji's face. He'd just gotten a batch of almost expired food, and this was the perfect chance to dump it on Xiaoyong. Arriving at the warehouse, Shangyi offered Xiaoyong the entire shipment at a 10% discount. The offer was great, but Xiaoyong knew Shangyi wouldn't sell so cheap for no reason. First, he checked the food quality. As Xiaoyong suspected, it was a trap. The packaging looked new, but the food was almost expired. Shangyi, caught off guard, immediately offered a 50% discount, but Xiaoyong still wasn't satisfied. He wanted top-quality food for his 5 million, but he had plans for the expired stuff too. Xiaoyong said he'd take the expired goods for half price, but payment would be in a month. Shangyi was stunned, but Xiaoyong offered his house as collateral. Shangyi was confused why would Xiaoyong want expired food. He couldn't even imagine that, after a while, even that expired food would be gold. Xiaoyong didn't elaborate, just telling Shangyi to deliver the goods to the right address. Suddenly, Xiaoyong got a call about selling his house. Cutting things short with Shenji and Tao, he left. The buyer was an old man, ready to pay 400,000 up front and give Xiaoyong 3 months to move out. It was almost too good to be true. Xiaoyong asked why the rush. The old man explained his granddaughter was changing schools and needed a place to live. Xiaoyong's house was the only one for sale in the neighborhood. The old man was so honest, he gave Xiaoyong all the information up front. Xiaoyong asked if he was afraid he'd raise the price with that information. The old man panicked, begging him not to as it was all his savings. Xiaoyong, not being a jerk who preyed on kindness, said the deal was on and signed the contract. The old man was overjoyed. His granddaughter had a place to live. He was so polite, he even apologized for distracting Xiaoyong. Realizing the old man's kindness and honesty, Xiaoyong felt he and his granddaughter wouldn't survive a month in the apocalypse. Calling out to the leaving old man, he asked for his address. Later, Xiaoyong arrived at his own land, where work was buzzing. Telling the foreman the payment would be transferred soon, he checked on the progress. Almost 80% of the construction was done. The walls and doors were as thick as he'd requested. The warehouse, based on the factory, was ready to go. This was great news. Xiaoyong immediately called Shangyi to bring the supplies. Soon, the warehouse, more like a doomsday bunker, began filling up. Under Xiaoyong's strict command, everything was ready by evening. Our hero could finally breathe a sigh of relief as soon as the workers split. Everything went according to plan. Right then, the system pinged him. Task complete. 20 system points awarded. Xiaoyong checked the system store and, bingo, a new crate with awakened abilities. Meaning, he could snag some superpowers before the apocalypse hit. No-brainer, Xiaoyong bought a crate. He cracked it open and scored a level 1 ability, Mind's Eye. Basically, he could sense if someone was out to get him. Xiaoyong was stoked. In his book, that was a top-tier skill for the early days of the end of the world. The system, though, wasn't about to let him chill. Boom. Another task. Get weapons. Lots of them. Xiaoyong wasn't sweating it. That was the plan all along. Time to get strapped. With this new mission, Xiaoyong found himself in the city's grimy underbelly, the buzzing, late-night black market. It was a cacophony of haggling and the obnoxious racket of buyers and sellers trying to screw each other over. Scammers galore. Suddenly, something snagged his attention. Out of the corner of his eye, he spotted a familiar face. The dude Kuai Ying was all over during the first apocalypse, Li Shushi. The guy was going hard, trying to lowball the price of some bogus jewelry, eventually wearing the seller down. Xiaoyong hadn't expected to bump into this chump tonight, but it figures the jerk would be hunting for fake jade bracelets. That witch, Ku Jing, was actually gullible enough to fall for phony gifts. A few feet away, he finally hit a stall with some potential. Blades, sharp as hell, lined the floor, each one looking deadlier than the last. The second he saw those blades, a grin spread across his face. He'd found his spot. Squatting down, he brazenly asked the seller if they had any hard stuff. Mr. Camouflage, looking like a straight-up military dude, wasn't thrilled with the cryptic talk. The guy tossed him a knife sharpener, telling him to get the blades harder himself. Getting more serious, Xiaoyong said none of these knives were tough enough. He needed something way tougher. Realizing what he was hinting at, Mr. Camo went stone-cold serious, asking if he was looking for trouble. Before things could escalate, Mr. Camo's phone buzzed. 200,000 yuan had just landed in his account. There was Xiaoyong, holding up the receipt after sending the insane amount through the stall's QR code. It was his way of smoothing things over with the pissed-off seller and showing he was a serious customer. Finally convinced, Mr. Camo called one of his guys to watch the stall while he handled real business. His attitude towards Xiaoyong did a complete 180. He politely led the young man to another building, saying talking outside was a bit risky. They slipped into the unassuming building next door without a hitch. Mr. Camo started trying to hawk some homemade pistols for small targets, 2,000 yuan a pop, ammo cheap. Our boy shut that down immediately. That lit a fire under Mr. Camo, so he whipped out some replica revolvers modeled after active-duty handguns for 5,000 yuan. You'd get a 9mm shooter, bullets 5 yuan each. For Xiaoyong, this was barely acceptable, but he'd prepaid 200,000 and this junk wasn't cutting it. Confused about the prepayment, Mr. Camo asked what he meant. Xiaoyong declared that the earlier transfer was just a 10% down payment on a 2 million yuan weapons order. Mr. Camo started getting nervous about this mystery buyer's connections. Xiaoyong spun some BS about how his underlings usually handled these shady deals, but he was here now and didn't appreciate any nosy questions about his identity. Sensing this guy was the real deal, Mr. Camo respectfully told him to hang tight. He bolted to another room, frantically locking the door. He gave the area a quick scan through the window, then turned to Xiaoyong and assured him he'd come to the right place. Getting closer, he whispered that he'd handle everything. All he needed was an address, and they'd make the deal at midnight the day after tomorrow, cash only. By the time Xiaoyong left, Mr. Camo was practically treating him like royalty. Xiaoyong, though, had the bad luck of running back into that familiar scumbag from earlier, Li Shuchong, right as he was strolling through the market. Li commented on the surprise meeting, figuring it explained why the young man had been spending so much lately. And then there was the Q Jing situation. He figured the kid had been watching too much financial advice online and was trying to lie flat, sell everything and live the easy life. Unbothered by the fat bastard's rambling, Xiaoyong decided to test out his new ability. Activating Mind's Eye, a subtle glow lit up his vision. He could see a happy face indicator above Mr. Camo's head and an angry one over Li Shucheng's. This was a very useful skill, just like he thought. To push it further, he trash-talked the fat bastard, saying he was buying fake and secondhand stuff to trick Q Jing. He added that she was his secondhand trash too, so it made sense she wasn't worth much. That really pissed off the fat guy, his indicator raging as he cursed out Xiaoyong. Seeing the brewing fight, Mr. Camo stepped in, asking his new big spender client if the fuming fatso was giving him trouble. He straight up called Li Shucheng an enemy. Taking the hint, Mr. Camo assured his new big bro that he and his crew would teach the fat bastard a lesson. Xiaoyong was cool with it, but he warned them not to go overboard. He had other plans for Li Shucheng down the line. Seeing a group of built thugs heading his way, the wannabe gangster started to panic, tripping over his words and losing all his swagger. Camo didn't waste any more breath on the lowlife and pulled out a baton. The boys made short work of the fat bastard, leaving him a mess in the middle of the dark road. Shoe prints covered his face and his white suit from all the kicking. This little incident just fueled his hatred for Xiaoyong. 2 days later, the rendezvous went down at the warehouse. Both sides were on time. In front of Xiaoyong was a truck packed with suspicious crates, exactly what he wanted. The arrival of his firearms signaled the success of his battle-ready task, earning him another 10 system points, bringing his total to 20, and inside the crates were heavy-duty firearms, rifles, pistols, and every piece of gear he might need. So, this system's bonus was a sweet +2 enhancement potion. Holding that syringe, he was stoked about this unexpected score. +2 was double the juice of the ones in the system store. No time to waste. He jammed that needle into his vein. He figured a little prick, right? Wrong. That strength potion hitting his bloodstream was pure agony. As a regular dude, his physical stats were probably around a 5, a +2 boost. That's like a 40% jump in overall power. Hell yeah. He immediately hit up the system store, eyeballing another one of those enhancement potions. Strength was clearly where it was at. Another syringe, another cheat code injection, and bam, he was rocking an 8. We're talking 60% stronger than your average Joe. The time to test this bad boy out. He spotted some iron bars lying around, the thick kind they use in buildings. Jiang Xiaoyong grabbed one, tossed it in the air, and unleashed a kick that would make Bruce Lee proud. The bar bent like a pretzel. The momentum sent the thing flying into the nearby wall, leaving a serious dent. With that kind of power, his bare hands were basically weapons. He felt ready to take on the early apocalypse, no sweat. As for the gear he just scored, leaving it out in the open was just asking for trouble. Better stash it in his spatial ring. He pointed the ring at the truck's contents, and poof, instant storage. If his memory served him right, the day after tomorrow was day for the apocalypse. Not much time to get everything else squared away. For some reason, he couldn't shake the image of that old guy begging to sell his house, all to get some cash for his granddaughter. Jiang Xiaoyong had seen some messed up stuff in the first apocalypse. Betrayal, death, the whole 9 yards. But ignoring someone in need, never his style. Maybe he'd send some supplies the old man's way. It was the least he could do, a small repayment for basically funding his apocalypse prep. The next day, Jiang Xiaoyong found himself driving to a shady part of a different city, ending up at a seriously rundown apartment building. Without GPS, this place would have been impossible to find. It was hidden, decrepit, the whole deal. The old man was renting in this cheap, ancient place. No elevator, naturally, and their unit was on the top floor. Reaching the door, Xiaoyong knocked casually. Then it hit him. He needed to get the supplies out of his storage ring, or else how was he going to explain where they came from? He activated the ring, and suddenly, boxes upon boxes of essentials were stacked sky-high in the hallway. Just then, the old man opened the door, figuring it was the landlord. He started rambling about paying rent next week. Then he saw Jiang, and the mountain of boxes stretching down the stairs. Total confusion. Xiaoyong promised to explain later. They had to get this stuff inside before the neighbors got nosy. After a few minutes of hauling, mostly done by Xiaoyong, of course, everything was inside. The old man was blown away that this young dude wasn't even winded. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong was scoping out the room, checking if it was a decent emergency shelter. Front door? Solid. He told the old man to listen up. This was important. The supplies needed to be used wisely, enough to last about half a year, starting tomorrow. Just as he was about to get into the details, a photo on display stopped him cold. It was the old man, beaming, with his beautiful granddaughter, and Xiaoyong knew her. The girl in the photo was Shan Shan, a close friend from the first apocalypse. He asked the old man if that was her name. More confusion. He'd never mentioned her name to this young guy before. Xiaoyong's face went dark. He urgently asked where she was. Still at school, while they were sorting out the transfer paperwork. He remembered Shan Shan's regret, the guilt of dooming her grandpa in the early days of the first apocalypse. As far as he remembered, Shan Shan's grandpa would risk it all to save her. He'd break into her zombie-infested school. He'd save her, but die in the process. Having been a close ally, Xiaoyong was determined. He wouldn't let Shan Shan go through that pain again. He turned to the old man. The house was off the market. The grandpa freaked, thinking the deal was off. But Xiaoyong dropped a bigger bomb. The world was going to hell tomorrow. The house, Shan Shan's school, none of it would matter. They needed to get her, now, and move her somewhere safe. This sudden announcement only added to the old man's bewilderment. Xiaoyong was in such a hurry he forgot how insane this all sounded. Explaining the apocalypse to an old-timer? Good luck. He tried a different approach, urging the old man to picture the horror of a famine. Scary, right? But famines don't happen in times of peace, do they? Realizing words weren't working, Jiang Xiaoyong went for a show don't tell approach. He sucked all the supply boxes back into his storage ring instantly. He even included everything else in the room. The old man was staring at an empty, spacious room. There was only one word for it: magic. Jiang Xiaoyong declared he had superpowers, that he could see the future. The old man needed to trust him, to listen to everything he said if he wanted to survive and save Shan Shan. Their next move: get the girl out of that school. On the car ride, the old man's jaw was still on the floor, his eyes glued to this unbelievable young man. To get there as soon as possible, Xiaoyong drove like a bat out of hell. Traffic laws be damned. They burst out of the car, they locate Shan Shan. In front of one of the department buildings, a young woman, Shan Shan, was surrounded by a few other students. Some stereotypical mean girl was slapping her across the face because some boy liked her. Shan Shan, eyes defiant, insisted she didn't even want to be with the freak and didn't like the attention from the creep. Another girl stepped in and kicked her in the stomach for talking back. Two of them took turns beating her up. Fueled by jealousy over all the attention Shan Shan got for her looks. The situation was escalating quickly, only to be interrupted by an old man's voice. Seeing his granddaughter in such a bad state, the mean girls turned their attention to him as he ran towards her. He yelled at the unruly young women, telling them to let go of Shan Shan. That's when some ugly thugs blocked his path, telling him to step back and let the girls settle their business, deliberately showing off their blunt weapons and blades. The old man didn't hesitate to charge in, even when threatened with knives, yelling at the boys for being mannerless bullies. One of the thugs raised a steel bat, aiming for the old man's head. It would have been bad, but Xiaoyong stepped in, stopping the attack. He looked at the young punk. It seemed like these guys were still learning how to be thugs. The other two shifted their attention to Xia Yang, thinking he was Shan Shan's older brother or something, an easy target. But the bully's hands holding the steel bat didn't budge, no matter how much he struggled. Then, Xia Yang gave him a solid kick to the solar plexus. The poor thug flew into the air like he'd been launched by a cannon. Seeing that, the other two hesitated. Xia Yang seemed trained in combat. Maybe if they went at him together, they could sneak a hit in. But judging by Xia Yang's cold, calculating glare, that didn't didn't seem likely. Two thugs, one in front with a knife, the other in back with a bat. That was the best plan these wannabes could cook up. The first to move was the one on the flank, swinging the bat. Xia Yang easily dodged by ducking. His new body, enhanced by potions, was proving useful. His reaction speed was heightened. He grabbed the thug who tried to bash him, pulling him by the collar like a misbehaving kid. With his newfound strength, slamming the guy into the ground was easy. One slam was all it took for the bully to pass out. He must have hit his head on the concrete. Taking the chance, the remaining bully rushed in with a knife. Without batting an eye, the zombie apocalypse veteran redirected the weapon and stared down the blonde bully. Xia Yang didn't even break eye contact while prepping another kick, this time hitting the thug on the side of the leg. The force was so powerful it made the bully fold like an omelet. For extra damage, the fall ended with Blondie's face hitting the floor, hard. In just a few seconds, the wannabe thugs were dealt with. The only obstacles remaining were the catty witches harassing Shanshan. After going through the first grueling apocalypse, Jiang Xiaoyong is now all for equal rights, equal fights. So, he smacked that bully across the face. She wasn't expecting it. The strength behind that slap was serious. It made her shiver, and her cheek turned red. As for the other bully, since she liked pulling Shanshan's hair, Xiaoyong gave her a taste of her own medicine. He didn't let go, no matter how much she pleaded. With a murderous gaze, he pulled out the knife he got from Blondie and placed it against the girl's neck. Scared, the witch cried. Everyone nearby heard a crisp slash and an ear-piercing scream. Xiaoyong didn't even blink. In the first apocalypse, he did a lot of things for survival, and those instincts remained. The ladies watched in horror. Miss Bully dropped to her knees, seemingly lifeless. Don't worry, RMC isn't that brutal. Yet, he just gave the bully a little haircut and humiliated her. Still not learning, the witch cried out that she wouldn't let Xiaoyong get away with this. He ignored her empty threats, glaring down at her pathetic self. He sprinkled the locks of hair on top of her head for maximum disrespect, telling her he did her a favor. Long hair would only be a burden in the near future. Everyone was confused by his cryptic words, but he assured them that short hair might just save the bully's life in the coming days. Xiaoyong turned to Shanshan, telling her they had to go, even if she didn't know where. The old man convinced his granddaughter to get in Mr. Jiang's car immediately. Inside, her grandpa told her she wouldn't be going to school anymore. With a crazy look in his eyes, he explained that a massive famine was coming, and survival had to be their priority. Shanshan wasn't buying it. She thought her grandpa had fallen for a scam call. Xiaoyong watched them bicker, as the young woman worried that her grandpa had been conned. The young man was just glad to see Shanshan safe, promising to keep her safe in this new life. Seeing his grandpa's words had no effect, he butted in and confessed that the information about the alleged famine came from him. Come to think of it, she didn't even know who this guy was, driving them to who knows where. Jiang Xiaoyong properly introduced himself, letting Shanshan call him Brother Xiaoyong. She thanked him for standing up to the bastards at school, and he assured her that those guys wouldn't have many days left alive. She was curious if there really was a famine coming so suddenly. He finally confessed that he made up the famine story to make it easier for the old man to understand. A famine in modern peaceful times would be borderline impossible. So he clarified that what's really coming is the apocalypse, the end of modern civilization. Hearing that would make anyone feel crazy. It's a natural reaction. Looking at the clock, Xiaoyong reckoned it was about time to check the news and internet to see the initial signs of the end times. Pulling out her phone and checking the news, a video of a man reciting some ominous end-of-days stuff appeared. It was a man being detained by authorities in a crowded train station. Some people said it was rabies, and the guy was biting others, but the man seemed lucid enough to recite some grim stuff about a smog with a strange smell. In the video, the detainee resisted being held down, breaking free and biting more people like a dog. It was pretty much chaos from then on. As Xiaoyong stated and expected, the initial signs of the apocalypse were already in full swing. Tomorrow's the big day, the official start of the apocalypse. A toxic smog is going to blanket several provinces, including Province B. Everything alive will be affected. It'll get so bad that a huge chunk of the population will mutate into mindless zombies, roaming the streets looking for their next meal. And the folks who do survive the smog, they won't be spared. Those flesh-hungry zombies will get them, and after a nasty, agonizing death, the victims will become one of them. Shanan's part of the new generation, so she's got a general idea about zombies, you know, from movies and pop culture. But it's hard to believe it's actually happening. When the chaos kicks off for real, though, tomorrow, the day after, next week, nobody's gonna think it's so unbelievable. Unfortunately, they got caught in some serious traffic when they needed to get back to headquarters as soon as possible. It was so bad that even the emergency lane was jammed. The old man was starting to freak out. Jiang had just mentioned zombies, and now they were sitting ducks. Xiaoyong reassured him they should be safe for now. But even if the zombies wouldn't take over everything for a few days, a small outbreak nearby wasn't out of the question. While everyone was bumper to bumper, some luxury car comes flying through the emergency lane, passing everyone. When traffic moved a bit, the luxury car tried to cut off Xiaoyong. The jerk was driving so fast and recklessly that Xiaoyong almost slammed into him. if he hadn't slammed on the brakes. He was pissed, and rightly so. That guy had zero concept of turn signals and just cut into the emergency lane like a total moron, endangering everyone. Feeling confrontational, the young man wasn't about to swallow that disrespect. He blocked the guy, deliberately showing he wasn't letting him in. The luxury car wasn't giving up. Everyone's stuck in the same mess, and reckless drivers don't get a free pass. The luxury car pulled up next to Xiaoyong's window and spewed some nasty curses, acting like he was the one who'd been wronged. The old man advised them to just avoid trouble, since the reckless driver seemed loaded and powerful. Xiaoyong didn't give a damn, though. If the jerk tried to step out and cause trouble, he wouldn't hesitate to paint the road red. They were stuck in that jam for almost an hour, but it finally cleared up. Looking back, though, it seemed like the headaches weren't over. The luxury car from before was trying to cut in again. It was deliberately chasing them. Xiaoyong was really starting to get pissed now. The rich brat just wouldn't let it go. Whoever that guy was, he was clearly unhinged, willing to risk his life and car just to be a jerk on the road. He was tailgating and deliberately taunting them, your textbook road rage enthusiast. The old man urged Mr. Jiang to just let it go and not engage. Well, the Jiang Xiaoyong of the past might have let this slide, but the apocalypse is due tomorrow. There's no need to tolerate scumbags like that anymore. So, Xiaoyong played with the road rager for a bit. He bet on the guy chickening out at the last second, and he was right. The rich brat nearly crashed on a nearby hill and had the nerve to blame it on the little punk from the traffic jam. The suited-up jerk immediately dialed the traffic police to get surveillance footage. He wanted to track down Xiaoyong and show him that people at the top weren't to be messed with. By the time the three reached headquarters, it was already late. As soon as they stepped out of the car, the old man looked at the compound, jaw dropped, surprised by its size. Shan commented that the whole place seemed a little over the top. Xiaoyong told them to get some rest. Starting tomorrow, everything they believed would be turned upside down. The world was entering hardcore mode, that's what he said. But he looked pretty chill, relaxing on his viewing deck with a coffee. First thing in the morning, Shan woke up and found Xiaoyong nearby. It had been ages since she'd had such a good sleep, and not having morning classes was a liberating feeling. Since she was already up, it was a perfect time for a tour of the fortress. They fetched Grandpa, and Xiaoyong showed them around. All the walls were made of some serious reinforced concrete. Each gate wouldn't budge without heavy weaponry, being remote controlled and made of 3 centimeters thick solid steel. People or zombies, keeping anything out would be a piece of cake. He also reminded them that nobody, other than the 3 of them, was allowed inside the fortress without his permission. Shan took that to mean leaving any other survivors who made it there to die outside with the undead. Xiaoyong didn't answer directly. He just invited them to the next spot. He carefully explained that with the apocalypse underway, human nature would become even more unpredictable. The evil inside people would be amplified without laws. Having a big heart and compassion would only get them killed. So, he led them to a spot he'd built. It looked like a fenced apartment complex with multiple shipping containers scattered around. He instructed that if he wasn't around and survivors came seeking help, they could be housed in this buffer zone as temporary shelter. Without his explicit permission, the ban on other people entering the main fortress still stood. The old man agreed. The next stop on the tour was the food storage. He also pointed out which areas of their supply could be rationed out to other people. Entering the warehouse, filled with stacks upon stacks of essential supplies, it seemed like an absurd sight. Xiaoyong turned around, looking at them intently. He activated his mind's eye to check their hostility status. After showing them the goods, he thankfully saw happy faces above their heads. It should be safe to assume that was a sign of trust, so he continued with the next showcase. From his storage ring, explaining that weapons were the most important thing in this apocalypse, he handed Shan a crossbow and the old man a shotgun. He reminded them to keep these weapons under their control, never letting them fall into someone else's hands. It was just common sense. Weapon security was a must, unless they wanted chaos. While in the middle of the tour, Xiaoyong received a notification about a new system task. After reuniting with Shan, he was given another mission: reunite with another former comrade named Jiang Qi. This notification came as a shock. Looking at the city from the viewing deck, he saw an arrow indicating Jiang Qi's location. He was already planning to find his old friends, so this was a nice bonus. Before bolting off to take on the mission, he told the grandpa-granddaughter duo to remember the rules and never think of breaking them. When asked where he was going, he got in his car and answered that he was going out to recruit and build up the team. The giant arrow indicating Jiang Qi's location seemed to be pointing at a KTV bar. Inside one of the rooms, a group of friends were having fun, drinking and singing karaoke. The silver-haired Jiang Qi drunkenly stumbled out of the room with one of his buddies to go to the restroom. After emptying their bladders, the two drunkenly stumbled into the hallway. Being so wasted, Jiang Qi accidentally bumped into a girl. It was a light bump, but the girl looked incredibly annoyed, not thinking much of it. Jiang Qi immediately apologized, but the girl's escort wasn't having it, calling Jiang Qi a punk and kicking the crap out of him. Jiang Qi stumbled into a wall, landing hard on his ass. It looked like it hurt like hell. His buddy ran over to check on him, and he definitely didn't look okay. Glass's buddy, showing some real balls, stood up for his friend, yelling at the violent thug for being such a jerk. Not used to being talked back to, especially in front of his girl. The thug was pissed. He grabbed Glass's buddy by the collar. The bastard was seriously strong. Seeing things escalate, Jeonggi tried his best to get up, admitting he was wrong and pleading with the thug not to hit his buddy. Luckily, a KTV staffer was nearby, whining about getting over the stomach flu only to catch a cold, but the commotion caught his eye. Seemed like fights were a regular thing in this bar, with drunk people unable to keep their hands to themselves. The staffer stepped in, trying to break it up, asking everyone to chill. The thug turned around, looking offended at being stopped. He took it as a major diss, like even the KTV's owner wouldn't dare touch his clothes. The heroic staffer was now the thug's target, so he silently gestured for Jeonggi and his buddy to get the hell out of there. The bastard thug demanded the bar boss show up immediately, or he'd shut the place down. Mr. Staffer tried to de-escalate, but it was useless as the college boys booked it. Back in karaoke room 3090, the two barged in like they were being chased by a wild animal. Their friends were naturally curious, wondering what the hell happened and why they were in such a rush. Well, they basically ran into a drunk thug who threatened to beat the shit out of them. They were lucky that one of the staff was quick-witted and kind enough to defuse the situation. One of their friends stood up, saying they should have fought back, claiming their mechanical engineering class should never back down. He wanted to call up other guys from their department for payback. Jeonggi stopped the hothead, pointing out that acting tough and looking for trouble with less than a year until graduation was a dumbass move. They should just keep singing, dancing, and celebrating. They did, but trouble kept coming in the form of the drunk thug and his whole crew. It looked like they'd beaten the server to find room 3090. The boys were shocked that a group of unknown tough guys had just charged inside. Drunk thug tossed the server like a rag doll and pointed at Jeonggi and his friends, telling his boys to grab everyone. The college boys didn't dare resist, scared of making things even worse, so they surrendered. Seeing the server's fate made them shiver. The tough guy of the mechanical engineering group taunted the thugs, daring them to let him make one phone call. Grabbing a whiskey bottle, drunk thug stopped the tough guy from talking by smashing the full bottle against his head. Tough guy Chen Chong's blood and whiskey mixed, flowing down to the floor, much to Jiang Xi's worry. Outside the KTV bar, a familiar car pulled up. Jiang Xiaoyong stepped out, smiling, excited to see one of his old buddies from the first apocalypse. He was amused by how in character a KTV was for a college student version of Jiang Xi. He entered, guided by the top-notch staff. Even when they faced the end of the world the first time around, Jiang Xi was always the type to still have the heart to sing. Chen Chong tried to act tougher than he was, and all it got him was a painful head wound from a shattered liquor bottle. The thug turned to his lady, feeling all proud, but she wasn't impressed. Since Chen Chong wasn't the one who bumped into her, no problem, they could just smash Jiang Xi's head open instead. However, Chen Chong was resilient. Grabbing a metal ashtray, he fought through the pain to fight back, but was immediately apprehended by the other thugs. His guts both impressed and irritated the head thug. Using the fresh bottle in his hand, he delivered another brutal blow to the tough guy's head. Jiang Xi and his classmates could only watch as one of their friends got trashed, not once, but twice. Being the good buddy he was, he ignored the armed thugs and charged at the head thug, tormenting them. While he and Glasses were bravely standing up for their friend, the remaining cowardly dude trembled in fear. Unfortunately, a 2 versus many gangster situation was a recipe for disaster. But while they were getting beaten up, the injured KTV attendant started groggily standing. Despite the numerical disadvantage, Jeonggi held his own, giving the thugs a lot of trouble. While they were distracted trying to beat each other, the KTV attendant had already started mutating abnormally, losing his sanity. The rabid zombie immediately ran to the largest clump of living flesh, exhibiting extraordinary speed. One unfortunate thug happened to be the closest, so the infected attendant took a bite out of his back like it was a medium rare steak. Still aware of what was happening, the thug was just annoyed at the dog-like behavior of their first victim. Meanwhile, Jeonggi's cowardly classmate was losing his mind from terror instead of backing up his friends. Another thug tried to pull the attendant off his buddy's shoulder, but the bite was way too persistent, and the mutation had enhanced his physical strength. Suddenly, the infected turned around in one swift motion, letting go of one thug's shoulder and transferring the bite to another thug's arm. The bite was painful, but the more troublesome part was the enhanced physical strength, making it nearly impossible to shake the infected off. At this rate, everyone in the room would probably fall victim to the mutated attendant if a certain someone didn't intervene. Jiang Xiaoyong stole the show by grabbing the rabid attendant by the back of the neck and lifting the beast with a single arm. To neutralize the threat, he turned to the nearest glass wall and smashed the zombie right into it, shattering the glass. Xiaoyong turned to the warring thugs and students, telling everyone to stop what they were doing. His display of swift viciousness was effective in demanding their attention. The thugs reckoned this stranger must be strong as hell since they couldn't even move the rabid attendant with 2 people teaming up. Head Bastard was pretty bad at reading the room, redirecting his anger towards the man who had just smashed a rabid zombie with one hand. Ignoring the gangsters, Xiaoyong turned to Jiang Xi, asking if the young man was bitten. Stuttering in confusion, he replied that he wasn't. None of them had a clue what was going on. Without further explanation, Xiaoyong just ordered his old friend from a previous life to come with him. For some reason, Jiang Xiaoyong felt compelled to follow but was stopped by the head thug, who still thought he was top dog. Before another fight could break out, one of the bitten gangsters started coughing severely, complaining about a severe headache making his head spin. Xiaoyong could spot the early signs of mutation from a mile away, and this guy was showing every symptom aside from the massive bite wound on his shoulder. He also complained about having a runny nose earlier in the day while still holding the rabid zombie by the neck. Xiaoyong confirmed the thug was bitten. Signs of rot and infection were already visibly spreading from the wound. He was a goner, and with the bite so close to the nervous system, it would only spread faster. The thug was bound to turn sooner rather than later, and they couldn't afford to deal with two rabid zombies in such a tight space. So Xiaoyong started moving, dragging the resisting zombie, drawing everyone's eyes. He chucked the infected attendant into the restroom and slammed the sliding door shut, trapping him inside. The rabid zombie was immediately rowdy, banging on the door. Thankfully, zombies hadn't learned how to open doors in the early days. Everyone looked at Xiaoyong, puzzled. With the threat neutralized, Xiaoyong's demeanor shifted to an even more aggressive one. He asked Jiang Xiaoyong which one of these thugs needed a beatdown. The young man was still confused about who Xiaoyong was, since they didn't even know each other. Head bastard, with his bruised ego, charged in, expecting to teach some cocky brat a lesson. But Xiaoyong just looked at him like he was a harmless kid. Before head thug could land his pathetic attack, Xiaoyong grabbed him by the face, digging his fingers into his skin, pushing forward until he found a target. Xiaoyong smashed head thug into the glass table. The bitten thug, with the mortal shoulder wound, immediately ran in to avenge his boss. Xiaoyong landed a quick blow to the gangster's windpipe. The thug laid flat on his back, his consciousness fading. Then came the next stage of infection, as the gangster started foaming at the mouth, seemingly having a seizure. His buddy worriedly checked on him. One punch shouldn't be enough to do that. Nevertheless, it was an effective show of strength. If anyone else wanted a one-piece combo to go night-night, Xiaoyong would gladly take volunteers. While adjusting his fists for a beatdown, Xiaoyong advised Jiang Xiaoyong to take his friends and wait outside. They gladly complied, lending their shoulders to the injured Chen Chong and getting out of there. The gangsters wanted to do the same, carrying their injured brothers who were slowly succumbing to the infection. However, Xiaoyong stood firm at the door, not letting them pass. Head bastard tried to intimidate him but failed miserably. They must have gotten so drunk that they acted like gods and nearly got his brother Jiang Xiaoyong killed. Not wasting any more breath on these lowlifes, Xiaoyong easily pushed head thug down, infuriating the egomaniac gangster. Afterward, Xiaoyong immediately left, slamming the door in their faces to let nature take its course. Head bastard began crazily banging on the door, calling Xiaoyong all kinds of names and threatening to skin him alive. Unbeknownst to him, one of his men had already succumbed to the infection. The zombie bite near his nervous system had hastened the process. Upon opening his eyes, they had already turned bloodshot and crimson, with no signs of sanity or control left. The rabid gangster lunged forward to attack his boss. Attracted by the banging, Xiaoyong held the door handle securely as the rabid gangster gnawed and chewed at his friends. To make matters worse, the zombie attendant locked in the bathroom had also figured out how doors worked. Xiaoyong could hear the carnage from the hallway. Curious, one of the KTV employees hesitantly approached. Xiaoyong urgently tasked the employee to get the keys and lock the door, not letting anyone enter. They were also to call the police and paramedics, citing a case of rabies flu inside the room. Hearing the seriousness in the young man's voice and the mention of rabies flu alarmed the employee. He was in a daze, so Xiaoyong had to yell at him a second time to act fast. The KTV room was securely locked from the outside, with the unintelligible grumbles of the rabid gangsters audible from the hallway. As for Jiang Xiaoyong and friends, Xiaoyong invited them to follow him for now, leaving the KTV employees to deal with the aftermath. The employee who locked the door couldn't help but be creeped out by the inhuman noises coming from inside. One of his colleagues curiously approached, asking what the chaos was about. The mention of rabies flu would alarm anyone, and so they decided to run to the security room and check out the live security footage. As soon as they arrived, the live feed showed the stuff nightmares are made of. It was a gore fest of rabid monstrosities feasting on their dead friends. The insanity in their eyes was terrifying as they gnawed on flesh and blood. Even the girl was not spared, her face bitten and eaten. This footage certainly lit a fire under the security team to call the cops. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong warned the college friends that the area was not safe anymore and that they must leave as soon as possible. Not sure what to do, they willingly entered Xiaoyong's car and they went on their way to the off-grid base camp. Jiang Xiaoyong thanked Xiaoyong for helping them, but they still hadn't been properly introduced, so he was a little apprehensive. Jiang Xiaoyong formally introduced himself and lied about the fact that he had been hired by an anonymous employer to protect Jiang Xiaoyong. The coward of the group curiously asked if the rabies flu was confirmed, as he had seen people debunk the hoax on the internet not too long ago. Xiaoyong simply cited what they had seen back in the KTV room. There was no other logical explanation for it. Glasses fearfully asked if there was any medicine or vaccine against this rabies flu. Xiaoyong stared at the boys from the rearview mirror while driving and gave it to them straight. The disaster wouldn't end, and it would only get get worse. In other words, they were already in the midst of the apocalypse. Speaking of the apocalypse, they just happened to pass by more blatant evidence of what was happening. At the side of the road, an infected man was chasing after a pedestrian, fearing for his life. The current situation in the city could still be considered just a small outbreak in isolated areas, as the majority of infected people were still in the incubation phase. But sooner rather than later, the epidemic would spiral out of control on a massive scale. If the boys wanted to survive, they had to listen to everything Xiaoyong said from now on. Fearing for their lives and feeling indebted to the reliable stranger, they promised brother Xiaoyong that they would listen to him. Rescuing and gaining Jiang Xi's trust finally gave Xiaoyong the pass to his mission, rewarding him with 20 system points. Now was the perfect time to secure more resources, so he was excited to see the new loot boxes in the shop. There was an Apocalypse Farmer box, Armed Deterrence box, and Food Supply boxes to splurge his points on. He had already seen the Apocalypse Farmer box, so it seemed like he would need to either refresh or buy it to open spots for new stuff. Nevertheless, every one of these boxes seemed useful and was not too expensive. Xiaoyong planned to redeem all of them once he got back to the fortress. Sneakily stealing glances at the college boys, one more tricky problem came to his mind. In their past life, Jiang Xi was betrayed by one of his doormates, leading to the deaths of multiple people at the brutal hands of zombies. Jiang Yi was the only one who barely made it out alive, but the betrayal changed him to his core. As for the rat who got everyone else killed, it had to be one of those punks sitting in Xiaoyong's back seat. On the other side of town, Kui Jing was on a call with the man she affectionately called Honey. The witch had been on edge, waiting for some promised supplies. Things were getting nuts in her area, and she was too freaked out to hit the stores herself. The chump kept swearing he'd bring the stuff over as soon as possible. Suddenly, a knock on the door nearly gave Q Jing a coronary. She hung up and crept to the door, heart pounding. Peering through the peephole, she finally saw who it was. She breathed a sigh of relief and let in her witch friend, Saya. Saya was also rattled after hearing that old Grandpa Lu from the first floor had been hauled away earlier by cops and an ambulance, trying to keep it hush-hush. It made sense, since Q Jing could hear all the commotion from downstairs earlier. The girls were starting to think the rabies flu news wasn't just a bunch of bees. As for Li Shuang's promised delivery, it was still a no-show. Saya had already warned Ku Jing that the greasy Swang was a snake, but they could at least use him to raid Jiang Xiaoyong's massive stash, enough to make a killing in this epidemic. Last time, Xiaoya failed to hook up with the guy and got booted out. She sent one of her fanboys to secretly keep tabs on him. She got reports of trucks regularly unloading supplies at that abandoned factory. He fixed up. It only made sense if Xiaoyong somehow knew about the outbreak early on. So, the two witches cooked up a scheme to use Shuang to hit the place, grabbing a slice of Xiaoyong's pie by force. Xiaoyong rolled up to base camp without a hitch. The guys piled out, taking in the sight of what Xiaoyong had managed to build in such a short time. Jiang Qi couldn't hide his excitement and awe at the scale of the base camp. It was more like a fortress at this point. Xiaoyong just grinned at his old friend's reaction. That's pretty much everyone's first impression. The rumble of their car also brought the other fortress residents out, weapons in hand. Grandpa and Shanshan were just relieved to see Xiaoyong back in one piece. He assured them he was okay, and called the guys over to introduce them as the new members. Well, he only knew Jiang Qi, so he just called the others Jiang Qi's classmates. Grandpa Shenbo and Shanshan cheerfully introduced themselves too, welcoming the newcomers to the safety of the fortress. Then, Xiaoyong assigned Grandpa Shenbo to take a few guys, show them around, and explain the rules and regs in detail. Glasses couldn't shake the feeling they'd just walked into some military base. Before the tour, the coward meekly demanded everyone's attention. He asked if they could get some weapons too, so they could help defend the place. Xiaoyong shot him a suspicious glare. They hadn't even been there an hour, and the guy was already asking for heat? That was kinda sketchy. Glasses whispered to Yang, the coward, to chill out on the weapon demands since they were the newbies. Demanding that kind of thing needed some trust first. To shut Yang up, Xiaoyong promised everyone would get weapons in a few days. Also, Chen Chong's head was messed up, so he needed to get checked out in the medical room first. After a few hours, the guys finally showered off the booze and the stress from the life or death mess. Ying turned to Glasses, annoyed, and asked why he'd shut down his weapon demands. He figured if Glasses hadn't butted in, they might have guns in their hands right now. The nerve of this coward to stand up and preach about how it was best to be protected given the situation was a joke, without firearms. He even compared being in this fortress to house arrest. Thankfully, Glasses had some sense and was grateful for being saved from the infected. Ying kept trying to plant seeds of distrust, questioning Xiaoyong's background. The guy only claimed he was hired by some anonymous client for protection. Yang poked holes in the story, saying it didn't add up. He gritted his teeth and brought up Chen Chong's treatment too. Xiaoyong promised to keep an eye on their buddy's injury, but the medical room had more security than a prison cell. Yang spewed the toxic idea that Xiaoyong might be plotting to harvest their friend's organs in that sterile room without them knowing. So, he was set on recruiting more morons to his cause and striking first against their savior. Glasses was totally against it, not wanting to stab Xiaoyong in the back after he'd brought them to safety. Yang declared he'd rather betray the world than let the world betray him. He wanted to take over the fortress and seize control of the whole area. Besides them and Xiaoyong, there was just an old man and a young girl. Ying figured if Xiaoyong was gone, they could grab the old man and the girl. The girl happened to be pretty cute too, and Yiming wanted a piece of that. The guys just looked at him with disgust. Fortunately, Glasses and Jiang Qi weren't that kind of scumbag. Realizing they weren't taking the bait, Yang waved his hand and laughed, playing it off like a joke. Jiang Qi naively bought that lame excuse. The apocalypse hadn't even really kicked off yet, and Yang was already scheming about degenerate, lawless crap. Glasses also pointed out that if Xiaoyong wanted to harvest their organs, they'd already be locked up by now. As the other two got out of the showers, Yang decided they weren't worth plotting with. He believed that in chaotic times you had to be ruthless, even though he trembled at the sight of blood while his buddies were throwing down with gangsters earlier. Yiming wanted to turn them into his lackeys for life once he took over. Grandpa Shenbo reported that Jiang Qi and the others had started settling in. As for the injured Chen Chong, he was also recovering, as instructed. All doors and windows were secured too. Xiaoyong thanked Grandpa Shenbo and Shanshan for their hard work, telling them to get some rest, because they didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Before they left, Xiaoyong warned them to keep a close eye on Jiang Qi's other two classmates, saying he sensed some traitorous vibes among them in the dead of night. Xiaoyong went straight to his warehouse to sort some things out. He opened the system's item shop and checked out the offerings, clicking on each product. He redeemed the level 1 Apocalypse Farmer box for 2 points, the level 1 Food Supply box for 5 points, and the level 1 Armed Deterrent Supply box for another 5 points, leaving him with 8 points. The Apocalypse Farmer box had 50 corn seeds. The Food Supply box gave him 200 kilograms of starch sausage, 100 kilograms of pre-cooked braised pork with preserved vegetables, and 50 boxes of pickled cabbage noodles. The Armed Deterrent box contained a whopping 1,500 rounds of 9mm ammunition. He piled up the rewards. The sheer size of it was impressive. It wasn't the same as spending money freely, but in the coming resource-scarce apocalypse, supplies were invaluable. The next day, multiple vehicles pulled up to the fortress gate. They confirmed the address and started their plan. Armed men with blades got out, and a man in a suit finished a phone call, and the suit ordered his men to break down the gate. The goons started bashing the steel gates with bats and tried kicking them. After a few minutes of failing, they complained the door was too thick. Mr. Suit was furious. He expected to burst through a normal house door, only to be stopped at the entrance. So, he ordered his men to bring out the big guns. They carried out wooden crates filled with their secret weapons, wine bottles. The goons made them into Molotov cocktails and started chucking them over the gates. The fire landed in the yard, not even reaching the apartment complex. Still, the Molotov cocktails caused a stir, burning bright and high first thing in the morning. After blindly tossing the fiery wine bottles, some finally hit the roof of the outer apartment complex. Shan, Jiang Qi, and the others noticed and came out with fire extinguishers and buckets of water. Xiaoyong had warned them about something like this. The disaster hadn't fully hit, and extreme situations were already unfolding. While the youngsters dealt with the fire, Xiaoyong and Grandpa Shenbo emerged from the warehouse with an assault rifle and a shotgun. They went to the watchtower to get a visual of the troublemakers outside the gate. Grandpa Shangbo commented that the guy in the suit and the car at the forefront seemed familiar. The guy who had road rage with them on the highway a few days ago. One of the thugs noticed someone on the watchtower. He notified his boss that the one they were looking for had shown his face, the little punk who'd provoked him on the road. Mr. Suit screamed and cursed, threatening to burn the place down if Xiaoyong didn't come out. The young man calmly responded by giving Mr. Suit and his lackeys 5 minutes to get the hell out of his property. These gangsters didn't respond well to threats. They just heard a brat telling them to piss off, which riled them up. The time for words was over, and they brought out 2 more crates of Molotov cocktails. Suddenly, Xiaoyong received a new task from his system. While Grandpa Shangbo stressed over whether to fire a warning shot, Xiaoyong read his new mission: eliminate the threats as soon as possible for 10 points. Seeing the reward, Xiaoyong abandoned the idea of warning shots. These intruders were clearly criminals. Order hadn't broken down yet, and they were already committing heinous crimes. They didn't care if someone got burned to death. Xiaoyong believed leaving scum alive during the apocalypse would only harm more innocent people, even endangering them. So, he started aiming. The young man pulled the trigger, going for first blood. The first hit landed on Mr. Suit's arm, stunning and terrifying him. The agonized scream of their boss made the thugs realize they'd messed with the wrong people. Xiaoyong, still cool as a cucumber, was frustrated he missed a sure kill shot. He must have gotten rusty. The thugs saw the assault rifle, and retreated to the cover of their vehicles. The first to run was the boss, but Xiaoyong was the type to obsessively follow through. Aiming more accurately, he began picking off the retreating thugs one by one. They rained fire on his property, so he rained lead on their asses, chests, and heads. It was a slaughter. The boss, fueled by adrenaline, managed to reach a vehicle. He ordered the driver to get out, not minding his bleeding stump of an arm. Grandpa Shangbo worriedly looked at the escaping car, but this was no cause for concern. This is precisely why Xiaoyong grabbed the automatic rifle. Carefully aiming at the retreating vehicle, he tracked them while emptying magazine after magazine of high-caliber bullets. Grandpa watched as the young man aimed, fired, emptied his load, and reloaded without a wasted motion. The kid's hip firing and reloading were so smooth that even during his military service, Grandpa Shangbo had never seen someone so efficient. After a few more magazines, things quieted down. The fires had been extinguished. Corpses of thugs littered the road leading to the fortress gate, and the getaway vehicle was busted and broken down. Everyone inside was riddled with bullets. Xiaoyong nonchalantly ordered Grandpa Shangbo to call Jiang Qi and his buddies to clean up the dead gangsters. On second thought, there might be a better way to use this incident. Since it's still the early days of the apocalypse, maybe he could let the corpses mutate into zombies and use them as practical targets to develop. Jiang Qi and Shan Shan's combat skills were top-notch, so he told Grandpa to ditch his earlier order and leave the dead thugs in the road all part of his bigger plan. Not far from the fortress, another bunch of cars and vans were closing in. Luch was in one of the white cars, getting antsy and asking if they were close. Qiu Jing, turning on her cutesy voice, chirped that they'd be there right after the next intersection. Xia was in the back seat, annoyed by Qiu Jing's act, which she always put on when that deadbeat Shuang was around. A witch always knows another witch's game. Once they hit the outskirts of the fortress, they parked, and Qiu Jing told Zhu Chang to wait while she went inside. The second she was out of the car, she tried to drag her friend into her scheme, claiming Xiaoya was the only one who knew which factory Xiaoyang was holed up in. Xiaoya, not wanting to get out of the car, said it was the factory up ahead, pretty hard to miss. Plus, her shoes weren't made for walking that far. But Qiu Jing was relentless, even yanking her friend out of the car, ignoring her pleas to grab her phone. Xiaoya ended up tagging along, even though she wanted no part of this. Back in the car, Lu Shang told his boys to get ready. He'd take the lead, and the van spacked with young punks and veteran gangsters ready to storm the fortress, even though they had no clue what they were getting into would follow. Xiaoya grumbled about being dragged into this mess, but Qiu Jing saw through her, thinking Xiaoya was making a move on her gangster sugar daddy. They'd schemed together for too long. She knew every trick, but she was wrong. Xiaoya had dolled herself up hoping to snag that loser Jiang Xiaoyong, especially since Qiu Jing was already taken. Walking up to the gate, the girls finally saw the gruesome scene. The road was littered with bodies, riddled with bullet holes. Clearly, they died in a shootout. Xiaoya was terrified, urging Qiu Jing to bail. Judging by the blood, the corpses had been there a while. Qiu Jing figured it was two groups fighting over Jiang Xiaoyong's supplies. If these hardened criminals died, then loser Xiaoyong probably didn't make it either. Didn't matter if he was dead, they just needed the priceless supplies. Xiaoya, being the voice of reason, wanted Li Shuang and his boys to handle it, but Qiu Jing wanted to sneak over and check if the factory gate was locked. Unbeknownst to the girls, the gangster corpses had started mutating, thanks to the virus in their system. Despite the bodies, the conniving witches still had the guts to go up to the door. Xiaoya couldn't see a way to open the locks. The gates were sealed tight, blocking any view of the inside. At least that meant Xiaoyong was safe and sound, and safe from getting scammed. Their fruitless attempt to get in was cut short when someone called out from the outpost near the entrance. It was Shan Shan, putting on a tough act. She demanded to know how they'd found the place. Xiaoya, playing it sweet like an old friend, said they were friends of Xiaoyong. Qiu Jing even claimed she was his girlfriend. To double-check, Shan Shan turned and told Xiaoyong there were two witches outside, one claiming to be his girlfriend. The moment Shan Shan vanished, Qiu Jing started accusing her ex of changing because of a new, younger girl. But Xiaoya knew they couldn't afford to cause trouble so soon, especially with the gate guard packing a crossbow. The witches were banking on that deadbeat Li Shuang pulling off the heist. He had a few handguns, and all the girls needed to do was get the gates open. As soon as Zhao Yang got to the watchtower and saw the two worst women in his life, his fury was clear. He secretly used his mind's eye to check their status. Xiaoya quickly put on a show, saying they were just worried and checking on him. Things had been chaotic, so she tried to play on his sympathy, all while secretly seething as seen by the mind's eye. Of course, Xiaoyong didn't fall for it. He wasn't the clueless idiot he used to be. He knew that scumbag Li Shuang had to be nearby, waiting for a signal. He even taunted the ladies, asking what weapons they'd brought. The foxy duo was speechless. They hadn't even gotten inside, and their plan was already blown. To make matters worse, Xiaoyong started spraying bullets where they stood, making them dance in fear. They called him crazy, but Xiaoyong just looked down at them as he emptied a magazine. Xiaoya, scared of the gun, wanted to be calm and not provoke him, but Jing was set on treating her ex like the spineless sap she always knew. But they were wrong if they thought Xiaoyong would just gun them down in front of the gate. That would be too easy. What he had in store was way more intense and gruesome, something grimy and bone-chilling. And the groans of the undead made their presence known behind the ladies. The army of gangster-turned zombies had started reanimating. Back then, they called it the rabies flu. Xiaoyong watched it all from his watchtower, unable to look away from the much-needed demise of these two witches at the hands of zombies. Leading the zombie pack was that cowardly suit guy. They might be undead, but he still craved the spotlight. The first three that reached the gate dove in, desperate for a bite of flesh. The ladies managed to dodge the monsters halfway through their frantic run. Lu Xiang started hearing their voices, calling his name like their lives depended on it, because they did. Behind the girls were the aggressively rabid undead. It was only a matter of time before the zombies caught up. Shuang looked out his car window and saw the rabies flu people chasing the girls. It freaked him out so much that he ordered his men to turn around and get the hell away from the infected. Shuang's crew booked it out of there, leaving the girls to fend for themselves. Qing's stamina and speed were crap, and she was about to become a zombie's lunch, but no way was she going down without a fight. Without a second thought, Jing chucked her purse at the faster Xiaoyong, cursing her name. The purse straps tangled around Xiaoyong's ankle, and it was all downhill from there. She tripped, face-planting hard on the pavement, busting herself up and ruining any chance of escape. As the zombies, seeing her down, switched targets. They swarmed Xiaoyong, tearing into her. It was a bloodbath. Xiaoyong felt the flesh ripping, but the betrayal by Jing hurt worse. Her eyes were bloodshot with rage. The heartless Jing kept running, not daring to look back at her best friend getting devoured. She muttered that Xiaoyong deserved it. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong watched from above, unfazed, as the system gave him 10 more points for taking out a threat. Innocent Shan was freaking out. A new mission popped up. Clean up the streets and kill the infected outside the base. Shan was terrified of zombies. Seeing those dead guys get up and hunt for flesh was horrifying. Xiaoyong explained this was just the beginning. The air was thick with alien infectious stuff, causing the dead and injured to mutate fast. He was done with the roadside freak show. Xiaoyong wanted everyone together for an emergency meeting. It didn't take long to gather everyone. Xiaoyong told them they needed to stay indoors as much as possible for the next 2 days, windows and doors sealed, to let their bodies adapt and lower the mutation risk. Zhang Yi mentioned her brother, Chong, still unconscious in the urgent care room. Speaking of Chong, his head wound was better, but he hadn't woken up. Instead of recovering, it looked like the infection was winning. He was subconsciously fighting the mutation, but it was too fast, visibly raging through his veins. The city was a madhouse. Chaos and violence ruled. Some people were running, some were letting loose, and some were eating each other. An old man, hiding at home, said it was total chaos. He planned to go to the warehouse at sundown to get supplies for his family. His wife and kid were to open the door for no one but him. Someone started banging on the door. Tension spiked. Dad told his wife and kid to stay quiet while he checked it out, grabbing a golf club for protection. Hearing a voice call him Brother Jay, the old man relaxed a bit. He opened the door to his buddy, Young Ta. Or so he thought. Brother Xi opened the door, but he didn't need to. The guests kicked the door in, sending Jay flying. It wasn't a friend. It was a gang of pissed-off thugs mad at him. The poor guy didn't even get to use his golf club before getting his face shoved into the floor. He tried to reason with Ta, reminding him of how well he'd been treated. Young Ta disagreed. He felt like a replaceable lackey. Brother Z reminded him he'd made good money, enough for a house down payment. But while he made enough for a down payment, Brother Z made enough to buy several houses. But enough about bad blood. The thugs wanted warehouse keys and an address. Z gritted his teeth. He couldn't negotiate. Seeing his stubbornness, Young Ta went to Z's wife and kid, pulling the wife by the hair. The kid's instincts kicked in, and he charged at the thug, biting him. It was useless and earned him a slap. Seeing his family threatened, Brother Jay told Young Ta to come at him instead. Young Ta assured him the mom and boy would be fine as long as Z cooperated and took them to the warehouse. So, the group rolled out with a hostage. They reached the warehouse quickly, opening the door to reveal a few scattered supply boxes, way less than expected. They'd sold almost everything, even near-expiry food, to a big client, Jiang Xiaoyong. Thinking of Xiaoyong, Z suggested they take over Xiaoyong's factory stash that would set them for life. Brother Z warned against it. He'd seen a young man with a gun, leading him to believe Xiaoyong knew about the disaster. Young Ta smiled. He didn't need to worry about guns. It was up to Brother Z to handle it. Confused, the old man asked what he meant. His task: take Xiaoyong's supplies and get his family back. A fair trade. Brother Z was screwed. Back at the hero's fortress, things were quieter after the invasion attempts. Everyone was in the urgent care area, facing their biggest problem: Chen Chong. He'd succumbed to the infection. After days unconscious, he woke up, but his mind was gone. His classmates cried, mourning a good friend. Almost all of them were crying, except for Yiming. Instead of grief, Yiming boldly declared they should kill Chen Chong as soon as possible. Xiaoyong whipped his head around to check out the brazen young punk. Ying. Jay also shot Ying a disgusted look, totally bummed that he'd suggest doing something so messed up to their longtime buddy. But Yang argued that their friend was already a goner. If they didn't put his zombified corpse down and he somehow broke free, everyone's lives would be on the line. Xiaoyong, ever the practical one, went along with the cold-blooded idea. As far as he was concerned, there was pretty much zero chance of anyone coming back from turning. Slowly, he reached for his combat knife and unsheathed the blade. But instead of doing the dirty work himself, he offered the knife to the chicken-hearted Yang, making the student flinch back in terror. Xiaoyong's logic was simple. Since this dude suggested the hit, he should be the one to deliver the final blow and end their buddy's suffering. And Yang struggled to take the knife. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to not do it. Xiaoyong added that this kid had been whining for a weapon since day one. Now he could have one, as long as he put his friend out of his misery. A few seconds later, someone else snatched the knife out of Xiaoyong's hand. Jiangxi had decided to ditch his conscience and get with the program, taking the knife instead of the useless coward. He'd gladly play the tough guy and off a good friend. Jiani grabbed the knife from Xiaoyong, gulping hard. He'd never been in such a messed up situation before. Xiaoyong asked him if he was sure about going through with it. If everything they'd been told was a lie, making a move now would officially make him a murderer. But Jiangxi had already made up his mind. He trusted brother Xiaoyong, even if they'd just met. Xiaoyong smirked, almost like he knew only someone like Jiangxi would answer like that. So he gave him the go-ahead to finish off the zombie. Jiangxi walked to the bedside and took a minute to check out his friend's condition. Tears welled up in his eyes as he raised the knife above his head, aiming it at Chen Chong's flesh. He fully intended to slit his throat, but was stopped just in the nick of time. A few more inches and blood would have been spraying everywhere. All of Jiangxi's force and emotion were concentrated at the tip of that knife, but Xiaoyong decided to step in at the last second. As confused, the student looked to his brother for an explanation. The answer was simple. The system had given Xiaoyong a weird heads up. For now, he ordered everyone to scram, as they had something special on their hands, a zombie that still had its uses. Turns out, Chen Chong had morphed into a rare mutated variant. This was huge. Everyone bailed from the urgent care unit and went off to do their own thing inside the fortress. The only ones left in the room were Xiaoyong and the mutated zombie, who was desperately trying to get a taste of his juicy flesh. Chen Chong was acting super aggressive. One look at his bulging, ominously colored veins would give anyone nightmares. But not Xiaoyong. He stared down the mutated zombie, excitedly telling it that it had an important job to do. Outside, the sun was blazing, and there were barely any clouds in the sky. Near the fortress, on the outskirts of town, a car was swerving all over the place, struggling to reach its destination. With no other cars on the road, this wobbly ride eventually slammed into a lamppost thanks to some seriously bad driving, rendering it totally useless. Brother Z climbed out of the car, scratching his head in frustration. His rotten luck had really cost him a car before reaching his destination. Thankfully, the factory was just a short walk away, so at least he was almost there. But his chill vibe quickly turned to pure terror as soon as one of the straggler gangster zombies attacked, lured in by the noise he'd made. Z, like an idiot, instinctively covered his body with his arm, letting the zombie take a massive raw bite out of his flesh. He shoved the mindless monster away, his left arm gushing blood from the bite wound. As soon as the zombie got back up, Brother Z bolted back to the wrecked car. He was looking for the crowbar he'd brought as a weapon. It might help, but was that really all he had? His rage and the adrenaline pumping through his veins gave him the strength to smash the monster right across the face with that simple crowbar. After knocking the overly aggressive zombie down, Z kept bashing its skull repeatedly, long after it had stopped twitching. Dealing with one of these creeps had drained him, and standing out in the open while more zombies marched his way was a seriously bad idea. He couldn't stick around, so Z started walking towards the factory, his body shivering uncontrollably. It had to be the virus starting its rampage inside him because of that bite. The front gate of the fortress was packed with zombies, just standing there, waiting for their next victim and conserving energy. To avoid all that hassle, Xiaoyong quietly opened the side door for today's mission. Behind him was the rest of the crew, decked out with their weapons of choice. Most of them were carrying melee weapons. Shannon whined that moving felt awkward and clunky, with all the gear strapped to their bodies. Xiaoyong explained that zombies are irrational creatures with explosive power and energy. With the team's current lack of combat experience, they were still way too likely to get hurt and needed to wear protective gear. He promised they could ditch it once they got a bit more seasoned. The crew quietly snuck their way around the complex, sticking close to the wall so they wouldn't get spotted right away. At the front of the group, Xiaoyong spotted the first zombie and warned his team to get ready. Now that they'd entered a zombie's perception range, the beast turned its ugly head, showing off its bloody, decaying teeth. As the team prepared for battle and the enemy rushed in, Xiaoyong gave his trainees one last reminder. Remember their training. They had to watch each other's backs and keep their distance. Xiaoyong showed off his impressive dodging skills, effortlessly avoiding a direct takedown. In fact, he was so calm and collected that he gave the team a lesson in the middle of dodging. The moment a zombie misses its attack, survivors have to seize the opportunity. They need to be fast and aim for the temple or the back of the neck. Glasses was the first to move, acting purely on instinct and totally ignoring Xiaoyong's advice on where to aim. He raised his blade, and his attack landed as a clean hit. The blade of his machete got stuck between the zombie's slightly split head. It might have stunned the zombie, but attacking the head directly also made the blade vibrate, seriously hurting his hand. The skull is the hardest part of the head. Attacking it with a melee weapon would only make their hands go numb, as demonstrated by Glasses. After a brief moment of being stunned, the zombie regained its ferocity and attacked again, desperately craving a bite of the student's flesh. Fortunately, Glasses had enough sense to use his blade for defense, trapping the zombie's teeth on the edge while he frantically called for help. Xiaoyong praised the young man for coming up with a solid defense and called Jiang Qi to snap out of it and help his teammate. Jiang Qi's expression was equally determined and calm as he repositioned himself behind the zombie, aiming his bat at the back of its neck. As soon as his wooden bat connected with the neck, a sickening crack echoed through the air. Xiong was satisfied with their first real training session. He also warned them that one hit wouldn't cut it anymore, so everyone pitched in to beat the zombie to a pulp. Once it was down, Jiang Qi eagerly turned to his brother, Yang Gong, practically bouncing for approval. Xiaoyong just smirked at the guy behind him. Another overly aggressive zombie had popped up, snarling and charging, hungry for human flesh. Genie's face crumpled, worried his brother was about to get ambushed by a mindless corpse. It lunged like a fish out of water, eyes locked on taking a chunk out of Xiaoyang's turned shoulder, but instead of a gruesome bite, the crew saw Xiaoyong spin around and grab the zombie by the head, like a rag doll. He made sure to keep the chomping mouth away from his body, while the zombie struggled with all its might, but it was no use. Xiaoyong reminded everyone to follow his lead and never let their guard down, always checking their surroundings. Shang-Chi took the lesson seriously. The others were just blown away by how easily Xiaoyong handled it with just his bare hands. Meanwhile, Brother Jay was still battling his bite wound, slowly creeping towards the factory gate from his hiding spot. He could see more crazed mutants roaming the complex. He was starting to think Jiang Xiaoyong might have already bought the farm, but then he heard voices near the outer wall. He recognized Xiaoyong's face and edged closer, using a van for cover. Peeking through, he saw Xiaoyong and a crew of strangers hunting crazed mutants, brutally bashing their heads in. Unbeknownst to the desperate gangster, something was lurking under the van. It was Sha, or what was left of her. She might have caked on so much makeup that even a zombie infection didn't change her face much. She desperately reached for Brother Jay's foot, clinging on tight. Her sudden grab sent Jay sprawling on his ass, terrified of whatever was crawling under the vehicle. When he finally saw what was tugging at his leg, his eyes widened in horror. Shy opened her torn-apart mouth, a guttural roar escaping her throat. Her clothes were shredded. This might be game over for the old man before he even got started. She was caught off guard. No time to react to the zombie version of Xiaoya. All he could do was yell for help. He was about to kiss his life goodbye when he heard a gunshot. Some stranger took pity and saved him. It was our hero, Xiaoyong. Now zombie Xiaoya was headless, and not just figuratively. Jay could only shove the corpse away in disgust. Xiaoyong was surprised to see him, immediately asking what he was doing there. Jay wasn't in a rush to confess. Like all his past fake friends, he pretended to be thrilled to see our hero alive amidst the chaos. But as soon as he got closer, Xiaoyong noticed a bite on his arm. Jay, hyped up on adrenaline and shock, hadn't noticed, but Xiaoyong pointed it out, clear as day, with the muzzle of his automatic rifle, ordering him to stay back. In that instant, Jay knew it was over, but he wasn't giving up, not for his family. He begged Xiaoyong not to shoot, to listen to his plea. Our hero was willing to listen, but only if Jay stayed put. Jay seized this last chance to help his family. He knew he was infected, that it wouldn't be long before he turned into one of those crazed mutant zombies. But he had one last request for Xiaoyang. That bastard Yang Ta had kidnapped his wife and son, using them as blackmail to force Jay to infiltrate Xiaoyang's base and seize his resources. Jay admitted he wasn't a saint, but even he'd never done anything so vile, let alone to his innocent wife and son. He feared, more than death, that those animals with Yang Ta in charge wouldn't spare his family. Their fate would be worse than his own after turning. So, Jay begged our hero to take care of them, at least because he'd helped Xiaoyong stockpile supplies. Xiaoyong knew this greedy bastard well, knew he'd only helped for his own gain, but he had to admit, Jay had saved him a lot of time. Xiaoyong considered the right thing to do. There was still plenty of space in his fortress, and the number of men far outweighed the women, throwing off the balance. Fortunately, he didn't have to ponder long. A notification popped up from the system about a new mission. Entrust the wife and child. To complete it, he had to rescue Jay's wife and child. He could earn even more points for this than for clearing out the zombies near the fortress. Now, Xiaoyong agreed to take care of Jay's family, no questions asked. The former thug couldn't believe this kindness. tears streaming down his face. He even bowed, realizing he couldn't repay such generosity in this life, but promising to be Xiaoyong's faithful servant in the next. He had one final request for our hero: to do it. Xiaoyong pretended not to understand, but it was simple. Jay didn't want to become one of those crazed zombies and endanger his family. He asked Xiaoyong to finish him off, right then and there. But Xiaoyong wasn't in any hurry. Unlike Jay, he knew how this apocalyptic world worked. Instead, he asked Shanzan to bring a bicycle from the warehouse for Jay, advising Jay to get as far away from people as possible, to someplace isolated. Of course, Jay didn't understand why Xiaoyong was doing all this, but he didn't need to. He didn't have much time left. All he had to do was follow Xiaoyong's instructions. For someone who was going to save his family, Jay was ready to do anything. His gratitude was boundless. As soon as he got the bicycle, he pedaled away with all his might. Time was running out, the zombie virus spreading, but thoughts of his wife and son kept him going. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong and his team finished clearing out the zombies near the base. They gathered them in a pile, doused them with fuel, and set them ablaze. It was a rough day, and they were all wiped out. But now, the burned zombies wouldn't be coming back. Xiaoyong's team now had enough experience and strength to take down a zombie with a melee weapon without getting hurt, and Xiaoyong had definitely completed the task with more points. However, when it came to small groups, or even hordes, our hero's team definitely wasn't ready. Xiaoyong told them all to hurry back to the fortress. There, he led them to the armored gate of the warehouse and gave Shangbo a crucial task: to keep the keys to the weapons warehouse while Xiaoyong went into the city that night. The fortress's safety would be in his hands. Shangbo took on this critical mission, but he was curious what our hero planned to do alone at night in a city gone mad. His old friends also refused to let him go solo and insisted on tagging along. Only Yang wasn't thrilled about this idea. Xiaoyong quickly quelled their excitement. There was no point in them going. They weren't ready for this kind of danger. They'd just be a liability. It was way more crucial to guard the fortress and keep everyone out. He was banking on Shangbo for the operation to rescue Jay's wife and son. Xiaoyong packed a hefty stash of melee and ranged weapons in his car. He also planned to snag more loot boxes from the system store, but it was empty. Xiaoyong was pissed that the store was updating so slowly. He needed those upgrades now, so he had to manually update the store to gear up for the tough mission. There were 3 new supply boxes: Black Tech, Life Saving, and Arm Deterrent. The Black Tech box was the priciest, but the most annoying part was that the manual upgrade cost had jumped to 4 points. He had to be careful, because each upgrade would get more expensive. Luckily, the boxes were awesome, and our hero had just enough points for the most expensive one. But after buying it, Xiaoyong was down to 6 points. As soon as he opened the box, a blinding light flashed in the car. Xiaoyong got a physical enhancement serum that boosted his strength by 5 points. Xiaoyong, still recovering from the sudden flashbang, instantly forgot his annoyance when he realized his prize. A 5-point strength bonus was nothing to sneeze at, so he used it immediately. It was a bit painful, but totally worth it. Xiaoyong's strength stat shot up to 13, making him about 2.6 times stronger than a regular person. Meanwhile, at Jay's place, things were tense. His wife was trying to soothe her son, promising that daddy would handle everything. But the thugs, led by Yang Ta, had other plans. Tired of waiting, they barged in. The terrified wife asked what they were going to do, but the answer was obvious. Yang Ta was planning to have some fun. We all know what the scumbag intended, and the worst part was that in this apocalyptic world, no one would come to her rescue. At least that's what Yang Ta was betting on. The story continues with these thugs ripping Xia's clothes off, while her desperate son tries to push one of them away, attempting to save his mother from being assaulted in front of him. Just then, Lee, the guy with the ponytail, shows up. He asks what the commotion is. One of the goons says they're about to have some fun and invites Lee to join, but Lee tells him the job's not done, so there's no time for screwing around. They need to focus. The goon gets annoyed, asking why it's a problem since they've done this before. Lee, pissed at this horny gorilla's cluelessness, reminds him they're messing with Jiang Shenna's wife and kid. He warns that if she can't take it and kills herself, Jiang Xingyi will have nothing to lose. He'll hunt them all down, and nobody's surviving that. He gives the horny gorilla a glimmer of hope, saying that once they've dealt with her husband, they'll come back and work her to the bone, not giving her a moment's rest. The horny gorilla calls Lee a buzzkill, but decides to heed the advice. The goons start leaving. One of them gives her a creepy look, telling her to wait her turn. The mother and son are left helpless, with nothing to do but cry. As night falls, zombies begin to roam. Our boy is cruising down these desolate roads, lost in thought about his recent gains. With 13 stamina points, he's more than twice as strong as an average guy, with improved reaction time and control. He's tearing through the cluttered streets, drifting around corners, feeling the adrenaline with each turn. The whole area is swarming with zombies, so he decides to ditch the car. The city center is up ahead, and driving would attract too much attention. Time to go on foot. He hears roars and sees 2 zombies charging. Unfazed, he dashes, avoids a direct hit, shoulder locks one, and throws it hard enough to knock down the other. He quickly summons his sword and charges. With one swing, both zombies are decapitated. They've become mere punching bags for him to test his new strength and reflexes. He's stunned by how easily he's overpowering them. There's no doubt he's more than twice as strong as a normal person. His instincts have sharpened too, and with his enhanced hearing, he can tell his destination is only about 800 meters away. Meanwhile, a group of zombies is banging their heads against the window door of a grocery store. Inside, survivors are fortifying the front gate, piling heavy objects to secure it, hoping it holds long enough for them to find a way out. Terrified, Brad asks his father if they're going to die. The father tries to reassure him, saying these sons of witches can't get in, and even if they do, it's a win because they'll be reunited with his mother. Naturally, his words offer little comfort, and the brat cries even louder. The officer gets annoyed and can't believe what the father said. He's irritated by the father's brainless nonsense, but the sassy father retorts that if he had enough brains to think before speaking, he'd be a property manager. Even the officer starts worrying they might actually die. Just as the tension peaks, they hear gunshots. One of the zombies clinging to the door gets its head blown off. The brat falls to the ground in shock, while the father is clueless. The officer tells them to move the heavy stuff to see who's outside, warning them to stay quiet as they carefully peek through the gate. They realize the coast is clear of zombies, so they cautiously step outside. The brat starts yelling about a mutant. Old Song quickly asks what he's talking about. The son explains it's a stronger, faster zombie, just like in the comics, novels, and games. Old Song, annoyed by his son's obsession with entertainment, snaps, wondering how he can still be talking about games even when they're in danger. He's now convinced this is why his son always had the worst grades. Officer Lee turns to Old Song, telling him to cut the bickering and asks how grades are even relevant right now. He urges them to hurry and keep a close watch, since they don't want that mutant ambushing them. As they move, Officer Lee warns them again to stay alert. Reaching a fork in the road, they stop. Old Song spots a boy across the street. It's our boy, clearly busy with his system, adding points and adjusting stats. The brat yells that it's a mutant zombie, but Officer Lee, being the only one with a brain, quickly realizes the guy looks like a survivor, not a zombie. Our boy chuckles at the brat for mistaking him for a mutant zombie and tells the kid to chill with the imagination. Officer Lee, relieved, approaches our boy and tells him it's too dangerous to be out here alone. He advises him to come with them, saying they need to stick together to survive, and invites him to join their group. Jiang Xiaoyong, clueless about who they are, asks about their identity. Officer Lee explains they're out looking for supplies, and that there are still quite a few civilians gathered at Rangshan Garden. The mention of Rangshan Garden triggers a memory for Jiang Xiaoyong. Recalls there's a Junu mansion nearby. Old Song agrees, saying it's just across the street, and tells Jiang to come with them, stressing that there's strength in numbers. Officer Lee has a gun, and with their experience, they're confident they can protect him. They just don't know about our boy's background, and even our boy doesn't try to boast, humbly agreeing. Old Song asks Jiang Xiaoyong why he wants to go to Junu Mansion, wondering if there's someone important he's looking for. Jiang Xiaoyong says yes. Old Song asks if it's a relative or a girlfriend, reminding him it's the end of the world, so whoever he's looking for is probably dead. Officer Lee agrees, saying even if they weren't killed by the Ravagers, they could have encountered those beasts. The mention of beasts catches Jiang's attention, and he asks for clarification. Officer Lee reveals that a group of thugs is holed up in the Bu Mountain Villa area, and to survive, they harm other survivors. They ran into them once, losing many companions. He decides not to talk about it further, reminding everyone to stay vigilant. Suddenly, the brat shouts for the officer to be careful. The officer spins around, noticing a zombie lunging at him. He quickly takes it down with a few shots. Officer Lee pants heavily, his heart racing. The gunshots have attracted more zombies, and the officer panics. But then he spots an abandoned bus. Everyone rushes toward it. Jiang Xiaoyong grins, thinking ahead. Running recklessly could attract more zombies, but the bus, as a closed shelter, is perfect for defense. The only downside is that if it falls, there's nowhere to retreat. Jiang decides to give this plan a score of 70. Everyone's already in the bus when Officer Lee tells him to hurry. Jiang Xiaoyong jumps in, and Officer Lee slams the door shut. The officer warns everyone to check each seat for hidden Ravagers, but the brat shouts that the zombies aren't giving up, they're still gathering outside. Officer Lee grits his teeth, realizing the zombies are still on their trail. The zombies bang on the bus, trying to break in. The number of zombies increases, and the officer struggles to keep the gate closed. Jiang extends his hand and slams the door with such force that the zombies are pushed back, and the door is sealed. Officer Lee is stunned, jaw hanging in disbelief. Jiang Xiaoyong suggests they smash the windows and fight back, Surprisingly, the officer agrees. They shatter the windows, and Old Song starts hitting zombies trying to cling to the bus. The others assist, making sure he doesn't fall. Officer Lee holds back on using his bullets, wanting to save them for when things get dire. Jiang Xiaoyong pulls out a crossbow and tells Officer Lee to use it. The officer is bewildered, not understanding how he pulled it out of nowhere. Jiang casually explains he picked it up earlier. Old Song and Officer Lee use the crossbow and their strength to clear out the zombies. After a while, they defeat all the zombies and finally exit the bus. The brat, feeling confident, believes they've turned a dangerous situation into a safe one and that they must be the children of fate. He tells everyone to stay cautious. Meanwhile, back at the fort, everyone hopes things go smoothly for Jiang Xiaoyong. Lu Yiming decides to keep watch that night. The glasses guy asks why he's suddenly so enthusiastic. Lu Yiming, annoyed, tells him to stop talking nonsense, reminding him he's always been sincere. The fatty, humbled, asks why Lu Yiming is getting worked up. Regardless, Uncle Shang decides that since Lu Yiming is taking charge, everyone else should rest so they can make the most of Ying's help. Uncle Shang tells Lu Yiming to wake everyone up immediately if anything goes down. As night falls, Lu Yiming sits around, thinking about how late it is and how everyone's probably already asleep. He decides to get back to his main mission, wanting to get things done before our boy gets back. Meanwhile, the old man's sleeping like a log, the key to the weapon room right by his pillow. He doesn't even notice Lu Yiming creeping in. Lu Yiming reaches for the key, but surprise, surprise, the old man's not as out of it as he looks. He wakes up just in time, asking what the hell Lu Yiming thinks he's doing. But before he can say anything else, Yang punches him square in the face. Key in hand, Lu Yiming bolts, the old man yelling after him, demanding the key back. The ruckus wakes everyone else up, and the old man spills the beans. Lu Yiming swiped the key to the weapons room. They all take off after that bastard, but the idiot starts throwing stuff in their way. It's hilarious, really. They could easily jump over this crap, but they just stand there like they're in a video game, blocked by some invisible barrier. Lu Yiming spots the nursery room and figures he might as well go all in. He heads inside, where Chen Chong, the zombie, is strapped to a bed. As he gets closer, the zombie suddenly lashes out with its free hand. Lu Yiming's thrown off because that hand was supposed to be tied down. He wonders if they screwed up and made the straps too loose. Honestly though, this makes him even happier, saves him the trouble of untying the freak. Meanwhile, the others finally get past the makeshift barricade, and what they see in the corridor isn't pretty. They're pissed that Lu Yiming went out of his way just to let Chen Chong out of the infirmary. The old man's kicking himself for not realizing sooner that Lu Yiming was such a snake, but Shan Shan tells him there's no use crying over spilled milk. They need to figure out what to do next. Since all their weapons are locked up, they should start by getting this zombie back in the infirmary. Uncle Shang decides to use the method Jiang Xiaoyong showed them earlier. Stay sharp and don't let the monster bite. With that in mind, they start moving towards the zombie. Jiang quickly grabs the bastard by the neck, while the other two help pin down its hands. The old man's yelling the loudest, pointing towards the infirmary and telling them to drag the zombie back. With a countdown of 3, they shove the zombie back inside and lock the door tight. Once the zombie's locked up, one of them wonders if it's just him, or if restraining the zombie wasn't as tough as they thought. Everyone else agrees, but the old man reminds them they've wasted so much time that the little brat must have gotten all the weapons by now. Right on cue, Lu Yiming shows up, questioning the old man's nerve, calling him a little brat. Sadly for everyone, the bastard's finally got a gun. He's annoyed that the storeroom only had one, but figures it'll be enough to deal with all of them. After he's done with them, he'll take his sweet time finding the rest of the weapons. Lu Yiming points the gun, ordering them back into the room. Jiangqi tries to reason with him, reminding him that it was Jiang Xiaoyong who saved everyone and gave them a shot at living. But Lu Yiming reminds them that our boy always acts all high and mighty. Saving their lives doesn't mean they have to be his slaves. The old man also calls this bastard an ungrateful sucker. Meanwhile, inside the infirmary, Chen Chong seems to have his own agenda, and it looks like he's about to crash this little party. But before anything can happen, the scene cuts to Rongxiang Garden. Officer Lee is giving our boy precise directions to Jinyu Mansion. He warns that the layout of the residential area is tricky, making it easy for zombies to hide, so he needs to be extra cautious. Officer Lee tells Jiang Xiaoyong that once he finds who he's looking for, he should head back to Rongxiang Garden to meet up with everyone. He advises Jiang to take the side gate, not the main gate, for safety. Jiang thanks him and says he'll remember that as he starts heading out. Old Song suggests helping him, since he helped them fight off those zombies and save their lives. But Officer Lee reminds him that they have no clue what the situation is like inside Jinyu Mansion. If they stumble into a horde of zombies, they're all toast. Old Song asks why they're letting Jiang walk into what looks like a death trap. Officer Lee says he's already warned Jiang as much as he could, so all he can do now is feel sorry for him. He adds, though, that they shouldn't underestimate Jiang's skills. He's clearly got what it takes. Meanwhile, outside, the area is swarming with zombies. Inside, the goons holding Jiang Shang's family hostage are getting antsy that Jiang Shang hasn't returned. The other thug doesn't give a damn and says he's been holding back long enough. Tonight, he's taking it all out on the wife, or he won't be able to sleep. Looks like these idiots are just waiting for a dead man to show up. One of them, though, though, seems smart enough to realize that Jiang might be dead since he went out alone. The other disgusting thug adds that when they get their hands on her, they'll tie her up so she can't off herself. They have no clue when things might go sideways, so they decide to make the most of the time they have. Meanwhile, the lady trembles, hearing the goons' plans. Ponytail finally gives his buddies the go-ahead, but he tells them to be careful and not let anything happen to the woman, especially not while doing anything nasty. Suddenly, Ponytail notices something weird outside. We peek outside and see that all the zombies have mysteriously dropped dead. While that bastard might not know why, we know exactly what's up. Ponytail decides to check it out, wondering if it could be a rescue team. But before he can go any further, his life story ends right there. As he steps outside, he's met with a dagger slash that slices his throat clean, his head rolling away. Meanwhile, the other thugs in the room are ready to claim their prize. They look absolutely thrilled and aroused as they start unbuckling their belts. They yank her son away and slap her hard across the face for screaming. They toss the kid aside, but the little brat's got guts and is ready to fight with all he's got. However, they kick him out, not wanting any more trouble, and slam the door shut, leaving the poor kid outside. At that moment, the headless body of Ponytail collapses to the ground, leaving the kid frozen in shock. But what stuns him even more is the silhouette standing over the doorway. There's nothing to fear though, because it's our boy, Jiang Xiaoyong. Jiang looks at the kid and asks if Jiang Sang is his father. The boy stutters for a moment before managing to respond. Meanwhile, inside the room, the thugs have already started tearing the woman's clothes as she struggles to cover herself. One of them, cocky and smug, slaps her hard across the face, demanding she scream out loud as they harass her, but the woman stays silent, not wanting her son to hear her suffer. Eventually, the thug decides to go over her and let his buddies have their turns, but before he can do anything, the door slams open. One of the thugs thinks it must be the brat who kicked the door open, but before he can react, his head is cleanly sliced off, and he goes silent instantly. His friend, clueless about what just happened, asks why he's standing there like a fool and tells him to kick the brat out. What his friend doesn't know is that the guy has already lost his head and promptly collapses to the ground. The others are completely confused, not understanding what's going on. At that moment, Jiang Xiaoyong grabs one of them and slams him hard against the wall. The thug, who had been happily undoing his belt, stutters, asking Jiang's identity, but Jiang doesn't bother with an answer. Instead, he delivers a solid kick to the thug's face, knocking him out cold and finishing him for good. The scene transitions back to the fort, where Li Yuming is holding his gun against everyone. He tells them one last time to move or he will shoot. The old man tells the others to just do as this bastard says and move to the room. However, Shannon decides against this idea. The old man insists she follow his orders since Luming has the gun, but reassures her that he'll think of something later. Luming smirks disgustingly and reminds them that there's nothing to figure out. He threatens them, saying they haven't seen his ruthlessness and decisiveness yet, and that he will definitely establish his dominance. He decides to take the old man down first since he's the one yapping the most. The other two standing behind the old man try to talk him out of it, but just as they're speaking, they hear a sound. Suddenly, the lock on the infirmary door begins to move, and with a loud swing, the door opens. To everyone's shock, it's Chen Chong, who had somehow used the key to free himself. They find it ridiculous that Chen Chong managed to unlock the door himself in his berserk state. It's clear that Chen Chong has a bone to pick with Luming, and he locks his deadly glare onto the bastard. Luming quickly points his gun, determined not to let a monster who can open gates at will live. He pulls the trigger, but to his despair, the gun jams, and he realizes he's about to get screwed. Before he can react, the monster lunges at him, tearing him apart and killing the bastard who's kept everyone on edge for the past few chapters. Not only does Chen Chong take out Liaming, but he also drags his lifeless body toward the infirmary. No one knows what's happening, and all they can do is watch in complete disbelief. Chen Chong, on the other hand, grabs the key to the infirmary door, tosses it aside, and locks himself in, leaving everyone standing there bewildered. Meanwhile, Jiang Xiaoyong is done taking down the thugs and finally frees the wife. He then calls the kid over to him, but the protective mother holds her son close, asking Jiang what he plans to do with him. Jiang doesn't bother explaining, and simply tells the kid to come over. The kid finally decides to trust him, assuring his mother it'll be alright. When he reaches Jiang, our boy hands him a dagger and tells him to kill these bastards. The thugs quickly realize what is coming for them next, so they start begging for their lives. Even the mother tries to protest, saying he's just a child, but Jiang states that he's no longer just a kid and that everything changes from this moment. He tells the kid that from now on, he's the one responsible for protecting his mother, so he needs to gather his courage and eliminate the monsters who hurt her. The disgusting smirks of those thugs flash in the boy's mind. Fueled by all his anger and courage, he charges at the bastards and, in the end, takes them down, finally avenging his mother's suffering. The mother looks horrified as she watches her son, while the kid himself is consumed with anger. He knows that even after killing these bastards, his father isn't coming back. In a moment of grief and frustration, he asks Jiang if his father is pushing up daisies now. Sadly, Jiang responds with a somber yes. The boy, unable to handle the weight of it all, throws the bloodied knife to the ground. He rushes toward his mother and hugs her as tightly as he can, seeking comfort in her embrace. The mother, desperate to keep her son safe, pleads with Jiang to take him with him, offering to do anything he wants in exchange for her son's safety. But the boy, determined to stay by her side, says he wants to protect her. Jiang invites both of them to come with him, revealing that he had promised Jiang Zina that he would keep them safe. With that assurance, the mother and son follow Jiang closely, walking past the dead bodies of the defeated thugs. The kid looks scared to see those bodies and is even more scared about the monster who killed these guys. Jiang, with his usual calm, replies that it was he who took down all of them. By the way, let's not forget that this kid's name is Shuai, and his mother's name is Shai. Suddenly, Jiang gestures for them to stop, sensing some suspicious sounds nearby. He turns to Shai and asks if she knows where Building 8 in Banyan Garden is. The mother responds by reminding him that it's the same direction he is currently facing, and asks him why he's asking about it. The scene then shifts to Building 8, where a group of looters stands outside, demanding supplies from everyone inside. They assure the residents that they will spare them if they surrender their resources. Inside, our team is hiding in the apartments, debating whether they should give in. Officer Lee quickly shoots down the idea, saying that the looters are animals who won't keep their word and will kill everyone except the women. The thugs outside continue shouting, giving everyone just 10 minutes to cooperate or risk being killed. Inside, one of the women thinks about going outside to beg the looters to spare them, but the other protests, refusing to become a plaything for those animals. The gorilla silences both of them, telling them not to worry. He assures them they aren't planning to surrender and tells them to guard the hallway, confident that the looters won't be able to get past them. Meanwhile, the gang leader of the looters outside smirks to himself, thinking about how well armed they are. His lackey, however, knows their strength isn't enough to force their way in, as the leader of the survivors inside is armed. Not to mention they are hiding, making it even harder to force their way inside. The leader just smirks, ordering his men to shut off the water to the first floor apartments. He figures they'll wait it out and see how long those inside can last. While these goons are plotting, Jiang Xiaoyong stands nearby. Shuai, looking all innocent, asks if these are bad guys. Jiang confirms it, which is pretty rich coming from Shuai, the kid who just took out 3 grown men with a dagger. You'd think the kid would show some character development, but nah, he's still got that childish charm. Jiang reminds Shuai that these are the same kind of scumbags who bullied his mother, so they gotta be dealt with. Meanwhile, Officer Lee tells everyone to guard the stairs and stay hidden, while he checks out what these guys downstairs are up to. He sneaks a peek out the window, noticing all 7 are armed, 3 packing heat. Suddenly, a loud bang echoes, catching Officer Lee off guard. Everyone's confused, not knowing what's happening, but we know those guys are getting shredded by bullets from Jiang Xiaoyong. One of their men goes down, and the rest are clueless about who took him out. That's when Officer Lee spots Jiang Xiaoyong, gun in hand, moving forward. He starts firing, and one goon takes a headshot. When they spot him in the middle of their circle, they return fire with pistols, but Jiang just keeps walking, unfazed. Not a single bullet grazes him. He just smirks at these amateurs. He aims at the boss hiding behind a concrete block, but the bullets hit the block instead. The frustrated boss yells at his lackeys to fire. One lackey stands up, ready to take Jiang down, but Jiang quickly shifts his aim and blows the guy's head off. The leader sneers from behind the block, thinking Jiang must be out of bullets. Confident, he makes his move, aiming at Jiang, but Jiang Xiaoyong meets his gaze with a cold stare. As the thug pulls the trigger, Jiang moves his head with lightning speed, dodging the shot. He grabs the thug's arm, aims the gun under the bastard's neck, and pulls the trigger. Just like that, the entire squad is done for. Jiang then rifles through the leader's body for anything useful. He heads into the building, only to find more goons left. They lunge at him, desperate, but Jiang doesn't flinch. 3 quick gunshots, perfectly placed, drop them on the spot. Shuai is ecstatic, totally impressed with how Jiang handled it. He can't help but admire him more. A system task pops up, revealing Jiang's next objective: recruit survivors from Rang Xiang. Completing it promises a reward. Jiang Xiaoyong asks about these people, and Officer Lee explains they're from the Bishan villas, south of the city. Officer Lee calls over Lu Chao and Chenny, the 2 guys in yellow jackets, telling them to brief Brother Yang about Bishan since they came from the south. They reveal that the people there are a well-armed gang, holed up in Bishan villas, having taken in nearly all the survivors from the south. This makes Jiang Xiaoyong pause, thinking back to his previous life. He wonders if Bishan could be where Li Shushan and Qijing's settlements were, and if it could be them who took over. He asks if Bishan is the only settlement left in the south. The yellow-coated man replies that it wasn't always, but the gang had weapons, and the smaller settlements couldn't defend themselves. As they took over, they killed half the population and abducted the young and pretty women, and anyone willing to go along with it. Jiang Xiaoyong is certain who's behind this. Officer Lee, hearing his confident declaration, asks what he means. Jiang replies that the 3 guys they just took down each had handguns and tells them to hold on to them and check for magazines because there's probably more out there. He also gives them his rifle, telling Officer Lee to keep it, along with 5 magazines. He explains that the Bishan crew won't let this slide, and with these weapons, 10 or so men shouldn't be a problem. He tells them to hold out for a couple of days while he reorganizes back home, and then comes back to deal with that shitty crew. One of the men is shocked, asking if Jiang is seriously planning to take on Bishan. He points out they're probably dozens strong, if not more. Officer Lee tries to convince Jiang it's not worth the risk, suggesting they find another place. Jiang reassures Officer Lee not to worry, saying he already has beef with the Bishan crew. Besides, in a few days, he plans to return with a bigger vehicle to evacuate everyone to the east of the city, near the old Tea Leaf City. He's building a stronghold there and needs people. Jiang turns and walks away, offering a casual goodbye and telling them to take care. He also takes Shai and Shuai with him. The scene shifts to a darker, more ominous setting, dead bodies scattered around. A lone guard is on duty. The place he's guarding is Bishan. Inside the mansion, we see the people running this gang. Wen-A, with his orange hair, is the boss, and he's asking why they haven't dealt with the supplies at the Jinyu Entertainment Center yet. Shai, the overweight man, responds during a meeting, saying he's already sent people over. But, little do they know, those people have already been wiped out. The other guy, Kai Gay, addresses the fatty, reminding him there are quite a few high-end affiliates living at Jinyu Mansion. They can't just take the supplies without consequences. Shay assures him that his people are instructed to bring back anyone alive. The boss is fuming, totally laying into Shay for not getting a single damn thing done. Shay, feeling the heat, swears up and down that this time he's got it covered. Meanwhile, Kay's in the background, grinning like an idiot, loving every second of Shay's misery. Shay steps outside to cool off, and one of his flunkies notices he's looking like he just ate a lemon. The flunky asks what's up, and Shay snaps, demanding to know if the 7 guys he sent out have checked in. Turns out, the flunky sent back up an hour ago, and the report is grim. The whole squad got taken out. Shay's freaking out. He can't wrap his head around how some regular Joes from Rongshang Gardens could wipe out 3 armed men. Panicked, he orders his lackey, Taozi, to round up everyone who can hold a weapon. He's hell-bent on not screwing this up again. Meanwhile, Jiang Xiaoyong finally rolls back to base. Shanshan hears the car and knows it's brother Yang. As Jiang enters the fort, the mission window pops up, confirming, mission accomplished. Shan's stoked to see him, but Jiang immediately notices Lu Ying's Mia. Our guy's feeling pretty smug, his gut feeling about that snake proving right. Everyone's floored when they realize Jiang knew about Lu Yiming all along. Jiang points at Shay and Shuai, tells the others to get them settled in their rooms, and then meet him in the infirmary. Alone with his crew, Jiang spills the beans. He knew from the jump that Lu Yiming was bad news. He admits he wasn't 100% sure it was him, but he was damn sure one of his friends was a scumbag. Jiang Xiaoyong then chucks a massive gun to Jiang Qi. Bleachhead catches it, checks the bullets, and realizes they're rubber. The old man's gears start turning, and he asks about the kid, Chen Chong, in the infirmary. Jiang strides confidently towards the infirmary, casually dropping that Chen Chong isn't your average zombie. He's a rare mutant, a fact our guy had already confirmed. He'd tested the zombie by asking him to blink 3 times, and the freaking zombie did it. Jiang explains that after the apocalypse, those infected by otherworldly sources have a tiny chance of becoming rare mutants. These mutants are usually way smarter and have more potential than regular zombies. They might even remember bits of their past lives, and Chen Chong is extra rare, even for a rare mutant. Jiang opens the door, and bam! Chen Chong's standing over the head of the troublemaker. The zombie waves at Jiang. Jiang tells him to cut loose. No need to hold back, get rid of this bastard now. As the mutated dude starts dragging the snake out, Bleachhead asks if he remembers him. The zombie pauses, looks at Jiang Qi. Nobody can figure out what's going on in that zombie brain. Suddenly, he swings at Bleachhead, who barely dodges. Seems like Chen Chong's just messing with his old buddy, which explains to Jiang Qi how, even as a zombie, he still can't keep his hands to himself. Later, Jiang Xiaoyang's glued to his system screen. Jiang Qi unlocked a hidden achievement, Mutual Companion. Boom! Completed, adding system points to Jiang's total. Jiang's surprised. A nice little bonus. He checks the shop, and there it is. A level 2 box. High-tech supply box. Never seen that before. It's pricey though, and Jiang hesitates to blow 50 hard-earned points. He decides to open the remaining 2 boxes first. He gets 2 insane items. The Lifesaver supply box gives him an interdimensional infection blocker, a chance to block otherworldly infections, but it can't reverse mutations that have already happened. The Armed Deterrent supply box blows his mind. A Barrett M82 sniper rifle, plus a bunch of bullets. Jiang's on a roll. Not only does he get a game-changing weapon from a level 1 box, but the infection blocker is a total game-changer. The thought of potentially stopping someone from turning full zombie gets him hyped. He's feeling lucky, itching to open that level 2 box, but he's got a mission first. Recruit survivors from Rangxiang Garden. He's tackling that tomorrow. Outside, Chen Cheng chucks the snake out of the fort's area. No room for traitors. Morning comes and everyone's in the training grounds, locked and loaded. Jiang announces that starting today, everyone's spend spending at least an hour a day practicing their shooting. They start blasting target bottles, and each hit creates a flash. The cans are getting hit but not exploding. Jiang tells Uncle Shan to have Jiangqi round up everyone and clear out more rooms. He's bringing back survivors from Rongshan Garden today. The old man's on it. Jiang also orders Chen Chong to come along on the escort mission. That mutant zombie's strength is going to be crucial. They find an abandoned bus swarming with mindless zombies, but Jiang clears them out easy, and Chen Chong helps by tossing the creatures out. Bus cleared. Jiang hands Chen Chong the keys, telling him he can take off his mask for now. No need for restraints. But, he adds, once they hit Rongshan Garden, the mask goes back on. Don't want to scare anyone. The mutant dude grunts in agreement. Meanwhile, at Bishan, Shai is prepping to head to Rongshan Garden, backed up by a bunch of lackeys. This time, Shai is leading the charge, determined to take down Rongshan Garden for good. He refuses to believe he'll lose, not with the firepower he's got. Their truck roars to life, speeding towards Rongshan Garden. After cleaning up and hijacking a random zombie-filled bus, Jiang Xiaoyong jumped in the driver's seat and got to work. He saw more zombies clogging the highway and didn't even flinch. Our boy mowed down those mindless monsters like the absolute unit he is. With his enhanced reaction speed, he drifted and swerved that bus through the maze of abandoned cars blocking his personal freeway. Back in Rongshan Garden, the high-rise looks peaceful from the outside. Inside, the group of survivors, led by the dependable cop Big Bro Lee, are carefully rationing their food. Their meals interrupted by the loud roar of a car engine outside. The kid figured Brother Xiaoyong must have been on his way back to rescue them. Thank goodness, Big Bro Lee's got a good head on his shoulders. He grabbed his AK-47 and signaled everyone else to stay quiet while he checked things out. Cautiously, he peeked out a window. What he saw wasn't their savior, but a bunch of thugs looking for payback. They were checking their weapons and looking for building number 8. Once they confirmed their target, Li Shuang ordered his men to move out. Big Bro Lee was stressed. Just when he thought they could ditch their hiding spot and join Brother Yong's fortress, those bastards from Bitway Mountain showed up. Old Song raised his poured pistol, ready to face the scumbags who just can't seem to learn. Now that they had a few guns, the survivors were feeling pretty confident. Big Bro Lee yelled at the wannabe tough guys not to get cocky. He reminded them that a whole battalion was right outside, outnumbering and outgunning them by a mile. He told everyone to stick to the plan and headed to the rooftop to set up an ambush. Outside, the Bitway Mountain Battalion checked if they were close enough to scare the crap out of the survivors holed up in the building. Led by Li Shuang, they raised their scoped weapons aiming at the windows of building number 8. Old Song peeked out and immediately screamed at everyone inside to take cover. The silent morning was shattered by the sound of automatic weapons firing wildly into the building. Every window in range was blown out, pushing Old Song back. After the first wave of warning shots, Shuang ordered a lackey to hand over the megaphone. While he negotiated, the others were to keep aiming and wrecking the windows, ready to shoot anyone who showed their face. Shuang arrogantly spoke into the mic, demanding the attention of the survivors inside. Before he could get another word out, the lackey beside him got his skull pierced by a bullet. The thugs froze. They weren't expecting hidden snipers. Next thing you know, another bastard fell after taking a clean shot to the leg. Up on building number 8's rooftop, the muzzle of the AK-47 filled the air with the smell of gunpowder. While the thugs scrambled for cover, Big Bro Lee was posted up in a perfect spot with a clear view of the enemy. Bitway Mountain never saw it coming, that the survivors would have long-range automatic weapons. Shuang blamed their intel, which said the survivors only had one pistol. Even if they'd looted the weapons of the 7 idiots who died last time, there should only be 4 pea shooters. The panicked thugs looked to their boss for their next move, afraid of getting picked off. The simple answer: retreat. These bastards aren't the sharpest tools in the shed. They took that order literally and scattered like headless chickens, running out of cover instead of waiting for the signal to run together. Running in the open with a deadly sniper is a recipe for disaster. The cop on the rooftop was as ruthless as he was accurate with that AK. Shuang berated his dumbass lackeys for running to their deaths. He counted down to 3, and the remaining bastards retreated like their lives depended on it, because they did. While his lackeys skedaddled, Boss Lee stayed hidden. It didn't take long for the sniper to adjust his aim and pick off the retreating thugs one by one, racking up headshots and body shots. From the start, Boss Lee's strategy was to use his men as fodder until the sniper ran out of ammo, so he could safely run back to his car. A certified scumbag move. As he expected, the sniper ran out of ammo and had to reload. For a bit, Shuang's fat ass managed to reach the car from a whole battalion. They were down to 4. Unfortunately for the last one, lagging a few seconds behind, Li Shuang was in the driver's seat and couldn't be bothered to risk getting domed while waiting for another expendable unit. Catboy got his brain pierced by a high-caliber bullet. Lights out. The other 2, lucky enough to hop into the cargo bed, lowered themselves, afraid to suffer the same fate. Back on the main road, Jiang Xiaoyong's magic school bus was still blazing through the clogged freeway like he was playing Mario Kart. Our boy was cool as a cucumber, navigating his way back to rescue the survivors. Since the roads were pretty much abandoned, seeing another car speeding in the opposite direction was a surprise. Even though he could, Xiaoyong chose not to meddle. He was focused on the mission. Right now, obtaining points was paramount. After a few minutes of smooth cruising, he arrived at the front of building number 8. Chen Chong, the friendly zombie, and Xiaoyong got out of the bus and saw the aftermath of the shootout. The young man was impressed that the rifle he left behind came in handy. He also connected the dots. That car he saw must have belonged to the fleeing raiders. Chen Chong looked at the fresh, bullet-ridden corpses and started salivating, growling like an animal. Xiaoyong smiled and asked his zombie pal if he was hungry. He gave Chen Chong the green light to go crazy on the carcasses. Better he gets the feast instead of leaving it for the mindless zombies. As soon as he heard he was free to stuff his face, Chen Chong grinned like a kid in a candy store. Xiaoyong let him run free as long as he met him under building 8 after the feast. Chen Chong didn't waste a second and bit into the neck meat of the nearest dead thug. He savored the taste of blood and flesh. As soon as he swallowed, an invigorating feeling spread through his body. Meanwhile, Jiang Xiaoyong strolled through the bloody battlefield like he was taking a walk in the park. Based on how efficiently the thugs were dealt with, he was impressed with Li Hong's decisiveness when it came to killing. The kid poked his head above the broken windows upon hearing footsteps, and immediately lit up when he saw Xiaoyong. Upon confirmation that it was their savior, the rest of the survivors showed themselves and enthusiastically beckoned him closer. With the super cop in front, the survivors packed up and met the young man downstairs. Big Bro Li formally thanked Xiaoyong for lending him the counter-strike weapon that saved everyone's asses. Turns out, before this dude retired, he was an expert marksman. Their happy reunion was interrupted by a loud, guttural roar from afar, followed by the sound of steady footsteps. The survivors froze in terror when they saw what was inching closer, our favorite badass zombie, Chen Chong, limping over with a strained look. Big Bro Li was the fastest to react. He grabbed the trusty AK-47 and aimed at the approaching zombie. Xiaoyong calmly held down the rifle and told the survivors to relax, since this guy was one of them. He said the beast was one of them, but everyone was having a hard time believing it. Can you blame them? Xiaoyong told Chen Chong to chow down on the dead thugs nearby. Big Bro Li, amazed and terrified, asked if Xiaoyong could talk to zombies. Xiaoyong explained that Chen Chong wasn't a regular zombie. It was complicated, and he'd explain on the way. He urged everyone onto the bus, reminding Chen Chong to eat quickly and get back. Chen Chong gave an okay gesture. Mid-chomp, after devouring every Beachway Mountain thug, Chen Chong put his muzzle back on. The survivors were stunned. How could a mindless berserker even put a muzzle on by itself? Xiaoyong warned the kid not to call it a muzzle if he didn't want to get smacked. The kid started to think this mutated zombie was actually pretty cool. After his feast, Chen Chong boarded the bus like it was no big deal. His mass had increased significantly, causing the bus to tilt. He even managed to speak a slurred word while handing the muzzle key back to Xiaoyong. Even Xiaoyong was surprised at Chen Chong's rapid progress. 6 corpses down, and he was already evolving. Right now, Xiaoyong's main concern was getting everyone back to base to convert his points and strengthen the settlement. He sat in the driver's seat and warned everyone to hang on tight as he floored it. Back at Beachway Mountain's headquarters, Liang was getting chewed out by his superiors for his failure. He tried to blame it on bad intel, claiming he didn't know the survivors had automatic rifles. Boss Lin wasn't buying it. A small-town cop with an automatic rifle? The big boss thought it was a ridiculous lie, but Liang insisted they check the battlefield. Boss Lin's right-hand man had enough and kicked Liang to the ground. That was Liang's cue to get out. Mr. Right Hand had been fed up with Liang's incompetence for a while now, especially after the heavy losses. They could always just eliminate the problem. Another executive, Boss Shu, called out the right-hand man's real motive. He'd been eyeing Liang's girl. The pervy fox suggested they share her, like shared property. Boss Lin seemed to agree, but insisted on waiting for the perfect opportunity. Liang, who hadn't left, overheard their disgusting conversation. He gritted his teeth. He needed a way out. Hours later, he trashed his lavish house in a childish tantrum. His girl tried to console him, but he just told her to pack. They had to leave as soon as possible. She asked where, but he had no answer, only that this place was no longer safe. He called his assistant, Chingy, and ordered him to gather their remaining men for a midnight departure. His girl sensed something was wrong, and she didn't like it. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong pulled up to his compound, parking the bus in one of their many indoor parking areas. The survivors from building number 8 were awestruck by the scale of Xiaoyong's doomsday fortress. The mission accomplished. He was supposed to rescue 5, but he brought back 8 besides the 250 reward. He got a 5-point bonus, bringing his total to 66. Xiaoyong told his zombie buddy that they had a 2-man mission to the Southern District tomorrow night. Big Bro Li overheard and asked what was in the Southern District. Xiaoyong said he had some unresolved grudges with the people at Beachway Mountain Villa. By nightfall, Xiaoyong locked himself in his room, eyeing the level 2 high-tech supply crate worth 50 points, which he could now afford. He clicked the item's logo, excited. After redeeming it, his points dropped to 16. A bright light swirled around him as Jiang Xiaoyong hoped he wouldn't be disappointed after spending so much.